What's good, y'all? How y'all doing? Today, I am answering all of my subscribers' questions. Anything y'all want to ask, I'm going to do my absolute best to answer it clearly and thoroughly. So, let's get to it. Now, guys, y'all can ask me whatever y'all want to ask in the chat, Nothing is really off limits, but I would assume it'd be pertaining to audio engineering or music in general. But I do have questions queued up. I have over time kind of gathered questions that people ask me a lot, and I'm gonna answer them because some of these don't need full videos to me, or there's so much nuance, and some of them aren't really like good for videos on YouTube. Dang, my shirt is super wrinkled. I should have ironed this. Should have ironed my shirt. I don't make sure y'all can hear me right. Okay, y'all can hear me cool. Let's get into some of these early questions. So, first question. I would love more topics on mix bus or I would love more topics on bus compression. Also, maybe you do your take on headroom when it comes to sending a mix over to be mastered. Okay, bus compression. I rarely do bus compression on a mix entirely. If I ever use not ever, if I the most times when I'm using a compressor, it's for the color, the character, the personality of the compressor. I don't use it that much for glue. For To me, I just use volume and automation for things like that, but there are times where on an entire drum bus, like some live drums, using a SSL G bus compressor can give it a certain nostalgic compression sound, like a pumping sound. So I'll use it in those kind of situations. There are times on the entire instrumental where I'll use it to slightly tuck the instrumental just a little bit behind the vocal, just like ever so slightly, so that every time the instrumental hits a certain level, mm, it's just tucked. But I haven't been doing that for like months because I've been doing more automation and just getting better at volume balancing. So I haven't been using that recently. Um, so today, like these days, when I use compression, I rarely use it on the mix bus, but I'll use it for a sound that the compressor can impart on a group of sounds because he or she is talking specifically about bus compression. So I maybe will use it on some live drums for that pumping effect on a group. I maybe will use a little bit of compression on a group of background vocals, just a little bit, but not all the time. A lot of times I literally would just clip gain them. And then when he said, oh, my take on headroom when it comes to sending a mix over to be mastered. So, I let me pull up Pro Tools for this actually. Let me see. Okay, perfect. Let me switch my screen here. All right, so in Pro Tools, this is my mix bus for this song, this pink track right here. So these plugins are mastering plugins, and these are more so mix plugins. So if I want to do anything to color or shape or just whatever, that's a mixing decision. Let me bring my mic down. That's a mixing decision to affect the sound and the feeling of the mix. I have these 5 slots to do that. Now down here I have these 5 slots to do any mastering thing. So if you haven't watched, well, how I mix a song and do my own like faux mastering is I will print my mix with no limiting on it. That could be hidden wherever, but it's normally never clipping. I don't really care where it's hitting as long as it's not clipping and it sounds how I want it to sound. I print that onto my print track over here as a 0.0, which is somewhere in this playlist. 0.0 right here. So if we look at this track. So it's probably going to be kind of low, guys, but let's just see where, just generally right here. This looks like a loud section right here. This is the loudest peak. We just had a moment where we just had a moment where we. My highest peak for this song is negative 5.4. I wasn't looking at this. I don't look at this at all. When I gain stage my mix from the get-go, this is already just like, I've already set myself up for a success, basically. Let me put that there. And that's cool. So what I'll do when I send a song to mastering, I already have I will basically print a limited reference, which is my mastering right here, which is just whatever these 3 plugins were, a little limiting here just to get the volume up and just to, you know, make it sound the way that I actually wanted it to sound when I mixed it. And I will send that limited ref to the mastering engineer. I will also include screenshots of my master processing if they want it, but I normally just include it regardless. If they want to recreate it or just do it better or totally discard it, that's totally up to them. I let them do what they want to do. But I keep on everything that I've done on my mix up here. So if I'm clipping for mix reasons, that's going to be up here. If I'm compressing for mixed reasons, if I'm limiting for mixed reasons, that's going to be done on these first 5 slots. I find for me, that's all I need. It's also, if I did have some elaborate mix bus from like a producer or the person who sent me the session, I'll usually put that over here. So that will also be coming before any of the mastering stuff going on right here. So the level that I deliver at, it varies, but it's normally just not clipping. It's just not above 0. It's usually around -5, between -5, -10, somewhere in there. That's usually what I send them. I send them my mix with no mastering limiting on, but I also will send them the limited reference and they can use whatever. A lot of times they just use the limited reference, but I send them both so they could do whatever they want to do, whatever they think is best. Yeah, but when I mix a song and I get to the mastering phase of finishing the mix so I can send it to the client, I want the master to sound like the mix or better. So I'm comparing my 0.0, which is just my mix with no limiting on it. I'm comparing that to my mastered version, and I'm being level matched. So I can make sure that it still sounds like my mix and the balance isn't changing and the feel and all of the groove, all of that stuff is not changing. So that's how I do that. All right, next question. I would love to see some mixing reverb on vocal sends tutorial. That's where I've been struggling a lot lately, even with a DS and EQ. The verb still adds a lot of frequencies that increase sibilance. Okay, now maybe I could do an entire video about that, about vocal reverb and how to get it to sit in the mix, because there are a few other questions I think that people ask me about reverb and how to get that to work in the full context of a mix. In this case, we have 2 reverbs right here, and then on the hook and the verse, we've added 1 reverb right here. So let's start with EQing the reverb. Actually, let's start with picking the right reverb. Let me pull up my stuff on my control surface right here. Let me mute the beats. And let's go here on solo. How did I end up here? Catching all the action. See. Okay, so give me one moment, y'all. Okay. Okay, so first thing you want to do is you want to get familiar with your reverbs and figure out, even if you're not familiar, you just want to experiment and find the right reverb first. You know, like you want to go through all of the presets. In this case, I use Valhalla Supermassive. Maybe that's not a good example. And I use this SP 2016. but I've gone through and I've experimented with different reverbs. This is kind of something that I've done over time. So now it's kind of something I do naturally. It's something I do naturally, but you want to select the right reverb for the situation. In this case, I'd used both of those, and then I use another one actually with a little bit of a different setting. And this is like that collective reverb sound.
How did I end up here? Catching all the action, seeing everything crystal clear. You granted me access, a part of you that I know you hold near, and we gaining some traction. So don't worry, it's a safe space here. It feels like we go way back, like we've been cool, we've been on track. Is it too soon just to say that? Just to say that? Yeah. Cheers to the good times, good conversations. Everything feels.
So in this case, I was more so going for like a personal kind of reverb sound, like you're in a room with them or whatever, because the song's called "We Not Even Close Friends." Also, matching the effects with the intention of the song. You know, a lot of times people just want these super long, dreamy reverbs, but the song is literally this specific situation. Everything is situational. This is why when people answer questions, they be like, it depends, right? Because in this specific song, it's about being close friends. Like, we not even close friends. We just had a moment. Da. So I'm not trying to make him seem super far away and dreamy with long, lush reverbs. We want something tight, something intimate, something that directly connects to the heart, to the soul, based on the context of it being this song. So I'm going with a bright room, a dark room, a little bit of a hall kind of a vibe. And this is kind of my long one that I've tucked in different ways for the verse versus the hook. But the first thing is selecting the right reverb for the song and for the vocal, for everything, like just finding the right reverb. Or like you gotta just experiment with reverbs over time. Valhalla, like they have a whole lot of presets in the actual Valhalla vintage verb, deverb even. Like you just play with the different reverbs and find one that works. Then EQ the reverb, okay? Like as you see, I'm EQing the crap out of these reverbs because I want the reverb has to work in context with everything else going on in the song. When you're adding an effect, a delay, a reverb to the production, you're adding a sound to the production. You know, I've added new sounds to the record that were not there before. So I need to make sure they work with the entire production. And I may need to EQ this so it works with the production and I hear the frequencies of the reverb that I want to hear. But I also need to um EQ other things so that like people, well, this was actually done to a 2-track beat, which was, you know, not the best, but I will EQ other things out of the way of the reverb if the reverb is supposed to be super duper important. Like it's just another sound in the song now, you know? So EQing, volume, just getting the right level. Spend a lot of time getting, even over EQ, spend a lot of time getting the level right, you know, and spend a lot of time getting the, even if you have to automate, the same way you have to automate the level of a lead vocal, and for instruments in the track, maybe you have to automate up certain parts of the reverb or automate down certain parts of the reverb. So a lot of it is that. You can get into a little more like extra techniques like sidechain compressing the reverb, which I did a little bit here.
How did I end up here? Catching all the action.
A dB and a half of gain reduction, using it, you know, as a little side chain. Just the reverb is ducking a little bit when the vocal plays. That helps. But again, that's just volume. When the reverb is being ducked when the vocal plays, it's just being turned down, you know? So you can do that. Like it's not hard to do that. You feel me? So a lot of it is just literally getting the right volume and getting the right reverb sound for the context of the song writing, and what works with the production. That is going to come to you over time because you have to listen to a lot of songs and a lot of different just reverb plugins to, and different like presets, reverb sounds that you can create in reverbs to figure out what works in certain situations. Okay, what was this one? Okay, this is an interesting question to me. Can you show how a de-esser works? Yes, I can show how a de-esser works. In order to show how a de-esser works, I'm going to use a dynamic EQ, like FabFilter Pro Q4. So let's go to, let's just loop this verse, take the groups off.
What's happening?
For teaching purposes, let's bring on the analyzer.
What's happening? How did I end up here?
Excuse me. So if you look at this frequency analyzer right here, you can see there are frequencies that are jumping out that are, you know, a little louder than other frequencies. Now, this is not what you need to look at in order to EQ, because you can listen. A lot of times you'll see this analyzer and the sibilants might be louder than the rest of the vocal, but that won't be displayed on this analyzer. So you have to use your ears, and if you're going to use the analyzer, use it in context. But what a de-esser will do, most of them, is they will listen to the audio like this.
Catch it.
So the same way I hit these headphones, I clicked on these headphones and selected this frequency range to listen to. That's what a de-esser will do. It will key in on this specific frequency range that you pre-select or maybe pre-selected on the de-esser, depending on what you use. And it will turn down the S's in a similar fashion that a compressor would. It basically turns down the S's at a set attack, release, and ratio as soon as the S hits the threshold that is set. So in this case, if I select that frequency range that we just listened to, we'll listen to it one more time. So that's the frequency range that the de-esser is listening to, and then on here, I would just turn this down and this will turn into a dynamic EQ basically. Let's do this to make it look more like what a de-esser might kind of do. A little more broadband maybe, I don't know, but whatever. And bring this up. This is where the threshold will be hitting for the de-esser, like.
What's happening? How did I end up here? Catching all the action, seeing everything crystal clear. You granted me access, a part of you that I know you hold near, and we gaining some traction. So don't worry, it's a safe space here. It feels like we go way back.
So this is triggering a little bit off of just the brightness and presence of the vocal as well, but you want it to, all it's doing is keying in on the range frequency wise where the S's, the T's, the ch's are at, and it's turning them down every time they hit. Now if we, and it just does this, but this is a visual way to see it. If we use a pretty standard kind of popular de-esser like the one from Waves, the same way I was selecting the frequency right here on the EQ, the Pro Q4, you would do it right here. And then you could turn down your threshold.
What's happening? How did I end up here? Catching all the action, seeing everything crystal clear. You granted me access, a part of you that I know you hold near.
So you can make it be a shelf, which if I bring the FabFilter Pro Q4 back up, a shelf type of de-esser would look like this. This is how it's going to be triggered. That's what this one is doing right here, versus if we click that, it's a band, and we could switch this over to it being a band, and this is how this de-esser would, you know, basically trigger off the compression off of the S's and the T's. So that's how you use a de-esser. That's the gist. Now this is an extremely broad question. How to approach a mix? This is one of the most broad questions that we might do the whole time. But let me see if let me read the whole thing. Would love your thoughts on how to first approach the mix. Where are you listening to slash looking for What are you listening to slash looking for when you get the stems slash creative mindset towards the mix? And we really appreciate a video on how to carefully go through your own revisions. My own revisions? What do you check when you bounce out the audio to test it in environments? Oh, okay. This is good. I have some songs on version 21. Yikes. And there has got to be a more effective way. There is a more effective way to listen and revise your changes. Thank you for everything thus far. Wow, this is a really, really good question, actually. Okay, my thoughts on how to first approach a mix. I have a little checklist to keep myself in check. So the first thing I do, I talk if I can. Not all the time I can do this, but if I can talk to the artist and the producer or the people who created the song and get their vision, what they think, what they want, you know, and just talk art with them. That helps me make better decisions on where to go, you know, because it's almost like if it's like they sat there and they made this thing and they had this intention and this vision for this song. I know none of that and just start doing my thing. I could take it in that direction. It could be obvious. Oftentimes it is pretty obvious, but there's this rare occasion where there's just little subtle things that might be misaligned on how I interpret it versus how they interpret it. And we can have that discussion in real time right then and there. So I like to talk to them. After that, I have those things written down. I will listen to the rough or the demo, whatever you want to call it. I'll listen to that again and I'll make my own thoughts. I'll just write out my own thoughts, whatever I hear. If it's things I need to fix, if it's things that I want to keep, if it's a certain character, like every little thing. I usually listen to the song. It usually takes me about 3 listens to do this fully. Every little single little minute to maximize thing that I think should be done in my process, I write it down. Now that right there is the mix. If I check all of those things off, the mix is done. You know, basically. So I sit there and I just type it up in my notes. I type my initial thoughts, everything that I think. And then I type what's the objective? What's the point? What's the purpose of this song? Just to clear whatever that is. And then I'll listen and I'll make note of what are the prominent main instruments that achieve this objective. So if it's the lead vocal, oftentimes it's a lead vocal. If it's a pop song or hip hop song, whatever, it's the lead vocal. Maybe it's the drums or the bass or something, or maybe it's a piano or this violin that has a certain amount of emotion that's just very important to the song. I'll write down those main elements that communicate the objective and the emotion of the song. Then I will organize it. So if I get a session or if I get a multi-track, I'll set it up in Pro Tools the way that I want it to set up. I'll make sure I know the key, the tempo. I'll add all of my markers like hook, verse, pre-chorus, whatever. I'll add all of that and make sure everything is good to go. C-Dub Beige, what's happening? We doing a Q&A today. I have a bunch of questions from people that I've collected over months, and I'm just going through those. But if you have any questions, or if anybody watching has any questions, I would love to just answer them and talk. We could talk about whatever, you feel me? But yeah, I would love to chop it up with y'all, you feel me? That's what we're here to do today. But yeah, yeah, markers, and I'll continue organizing everything, color coding everything, making sure all my groups are set up properly. Um, yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Then I'll do some gain staging. Then I'll check the loudness of the rough mix. That will inform me. And I would have already talked about this with the artist or the producer, but like if the song is -4 LUFS and it shouldn't be -4 LUFS, I'll have a conversation with them and I'll be like, yeah, the song is -4 LUFS, but it needs to groove, it needs to dance. At -4 LUFS, this kind of song, it's not grooving and it's not dancing. What do you think about that? Do you want to be -4 LUFS? Do you not want the song to groove or dance? I'll have these conversations beforehand, so I'll know if I have to go -4 LUFS or can I bring it down to 10. you know, and I'll inform the client that I will provide them a level matched reference. So it's not confusing because one is negative, one is louder than the other. You're not confused by the loudness. Um, but I'll say I'm gonna give y'all a level match reference that will be how it'll play back on streaming if I realize I'm going to be fighting against loudness. Then I will do all of my editing. So I'll do all the technical stuff before I really get into the creative stuff. So all of this kind of what I'm talking about is like technical admin stuff, low key. There's some creative as far as my initial thoughts and everything, but I will do timing, whether it's like vocal timing, making sure everything is in a pocket and the timing is right. Background vocals, making sure the stacks, the harmonies, they're all aligned how they should be for the vibe of the record. Um, Drum stuff, bass stuff. If I gotta, time a bass performance a little better, like adjust the time, whatever I gotta do, I'm doing all of that right there. Cause a part of that is creative actually, but doing all of that stuff is kind of taxing and it's tough to do all of this timing stuff and then mix the record after. So I'll do that usually the night before or whatever. But I'll do the timing and I'll do tuning as well. If I need to tune some vocals or whatever, I'll do that. And then I'll go through and I'll remove any of the clicks and pops, like mouth noises. If I got to remove room noise, whatever I got to do, I'll go through and do that as well. And then I will commit all of those files and I'll make a playlist so I can always go back to what they originally sent me. But I'll make a new, like I'll put those in a playlist, make a new one, just duplicate it or whatever, and I'll commit all of those things so I don't see all of the chops and all of the stuff that I've done. And then I'll be done. And I'll usually do this the night before. I'll be done. The next day I'll wake up and I'll start mixing. I'll do volume automation on the lead vocal. That's usually where I'll start with automation. I'll do volume automation on the lead vocal throughout the entire song. Then I'll mute the lead vocal. Now this is my approach in general for real, but especially when I'm mixing with full multi-tracks, all of the tracks of the production. I'm going to do lead vocal automation. Then I'm going to mute everything except the drums. I start with the drums. I get the drum vibe right for the song in that specific soloed drum grouped section. And I get the drum vibe going, then I bring in the bass. And I'll sometimes just listen to the kick and the bass together only and mute the rest of the drums, just have the kick and the bass playing and get that relationship right. Then bring all of the other drums back and get that relationship right. Then I bring the lead vocal in. So this is kind of my like systematic approach, but I don't always do that. It's more about the groove and the rhythm of the song. So sometimes it might not be the drums, but normally it's just the drums. I start there, drums, bass, lead vocal. Then when I start putting the effects on the lead vocal, I'll mute the drums and the bass and I'll bring all of the music up and I'll start putting the reverbs and the delays on the lead vocal with the music and context. Then I'll mute the music. Then I'll bring the drums and the bass back and I'll mix the lead vocals with the effects on, with all the ad-libs and background vocals, and then I'll whatever. Then I'll start bringing everything up together and start mixing everything together. And I'll go back and forth through mixing in groups. I don't normally mix much in solo, but I do mix in groups often. So I'll mix lead vocal with the drums, lead vocal with the music, um, whatever, stuff like that. Drums with the bass with the music, background vocals with the instrumental, background vocals with the drums, background vocals with the music, whatever. I kind of do that type of approach. Nice. What DAW you use? I use Pro Tools. I really enjoyed your vid on EQing as far as cutting to find bad frequencies. Let's go. I'm glad. Is there anything you want me to make a video about on the channel? And any questions, just keep on asking questions, man. This is what we here doing. I just want to vibe with y'all, Like, this might not be a super popular stream or whatever because I'm not like mixing a song live or I'm not doing anything just clickbaity, but this is really where you're gonna get the most usable information, the most applicable, practical information. Yes, okay. So let me go make sure I'm finishing up the question properly. Okay, yeah. So then I would go through my whole entire mix process, and at this point, when I'm mixing, it's about the emotion, it's about the creativity. I want to make this feel like the most emotional record as possible that makes sense for the song. I want the producer to sound like a star, the artist to sound like a star, if that makes sense for this record, because sometimes you don't want them to sound like a star. You want them to sound like a bedroom warrior. You just, the context is important, but I'm trying to nail the purpose of this entire situation. And then let me see, blah, 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 and then how I go through my own revisions. So I reference a lot before I even start mixing. I make a playlist, and this is a little janky. I should do this a better way, but I make a playlist on Apple Music, and it's called Current Mix. So I put a bunch of songs that I like the mixes of. I like the aesthetic of these songs. I put that in a playlist, and I'll A/B that a lot as I'm mixing, just to keep my ear on track. Because working on something for so long, even though I do take many breaks, working on something for so long, you can kind of lose perspective sometimes and just forget what's how bright is too bright or how dark is too dark. Just simple stuff like that. So it's just simple things to key me back in on like what's really going on. So I do that. I do reference a lot. And it's also like, not that it's a whole competition thing, but it's a comparable thing. If I want to be bright, I need to know what's not bright. So I need to know that oh yes, when I A/B my mix versus this release song, I am actually brighter than them on purpose. So it's just a way to make sure I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Then when it says, what do you check when you bounce out the audio to test in environments? I don't really have a revision process, but I have a testing process, and that is it's not really a revision process to me. I still call that mixing. So I will, how do I go about doing this? Let me think. I do a lot of referencing. I listen in the Apple earbuds, the ones that you plug in. I used to have AirPods, but they basically died, and I just didn't want to buy new ones because I really don't even like them. I like the first ones they made that you plug in with the aux. So I use those to check my mixes on, and I use a headphone amp because the headphone amp sounds better than the headphone jack on my interface. And I will listen in AirPod earbuds. I will listen in some, and the thing is, I use these mediums because I have listened to so much music on those. I've listened to so much music on those Apple earbuds. So much music. I've been listening to music on those, literally those same ones since like 2010. You feel me? I've had them for so long, for 16 years, and they still work perfectly fine. Where I had this is why I didn't buy new AirPods, because I had the AirPods for like 2 years and they just stopped holding a charge. And I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna buy another pair of headphones. I just only had these for like 2 years. Anyway, I use those, and then I use the Beats Solos. Again, I had the Beats Solos probably since like 2011, 2012. So I've listened to so much music on those. So I know how music sounds on them. That's why I'm just super familiar with those. And then I listen on a Bluetooth speaker. It's it's a trash Bluetooth speaker. It's not even like a name brand that anybody knows. I think it's called Fox L. It sucks. I ain't gonna lie, it doesn't sound good. But I know how things sound on it, and it gives me a good tell of balance and where the lead vocal is. Like the lead vocal cuts through a certain way on this speaker, and I know if it's doing that, I've done what I need to do. I also listen through these Bose headphones, these Bluetooth Bose headphones. Those are actually pretty new. I've only had those maybe for like 2 or 3 years, but I have listened to a decent amount of music on those. But what I use those for is they're super bright. So they're not, none of these headphones are, to me, I wouldn't mix on them, but I check on them, I reference on them because they're consumer products, and you still want the emotion and the energy to come through on what most people, the types of mediums most people are going to listen on. So when I listen on those Bose headphones, it lets me know immediately if things are too bright, too sibilant, if I missed a click and a pop here or there. Like, it lets me know. Then after that, I check on my phone. You got to check on your phone. That's where people discover songs the most, on social media, watching on their phone. So I check on my phone, and then I'll check in the car, and that's it. And I don't print my mix. I don't bounce nothing until after I've checked in the car, because you can just use this app or this plugin, whatever it's called, Listen To from Audio Movers. I use that and I stream it to my phone like Bluetooth or whatever. And they have an app you can download on your phone, so it's super easy. And then I can go to my car and I can connect via USB in my car and listen in my car. And again, I'm just super familiar with my car as well. So I just know how things sound in there. You feel me? Like that's it. My speakers is my main mixing source, but then those other things I mentioned, that's how I check in consumer environment. So I check in all of those. And from there, I'm good to go. If it passed all them tests, I'm good. Yeah. Okay, let me make sure I read everything about that question. Yeah, there we go. We're good on that one. All right, next question. Oh, how to get a song to translate everywhere. I just answered that question. I don't know. I mean, this was how I ordered it, so that was good that this came right after. But yeah, that's how I get a song to translate everywhere is you listen everywhere. But also it is something that you develop over time because how do I get my how do you it depends on the song too because every song is not meant to be played on club speakers, but you might have a song that is meant to be played on club speakers and you want to make sure that the bass is hitting a certain way. And you might not be able to go to a club. So, you could check in your car, you can max it out in your car. Maybe you got a friend who has a subwoofer in their car and you can, check in that environment. But if you do that in an unfamiliar environment, you want to have songs that like the back of your hand that these go crazy in the club. You feel me? And you want to kind of get towards that vibe. Everywhere is a difficult, like it's never going to be perfect. So I would relinquish the idea of your mix translating everywhere because some people have the worst listening environments in the world. I work with some people and they're like, "Man, it just doesn't sound good in my studio." And then you look at their studio and it's not even a studio. It's like, "Bro, nothing sounds good in your studio." So everywhere is not really what I'm trying to do, but I do want to make sure it's listenable. You feel me? In pretty much most cases. But there are mixes that sound amazing on your phone, but they sound terrible in a really good studio, or they sound terrible on headphones or something like that. So everywhere is maybe not the right word, but you just want you want the emotion to come through in majority of mediums. How to link tools to creativity, technicality to intention? This is a great question, and I feel like this is a huge problem in the engineering community, not only from the engineers, but even from the artists and the producers, the songwriters, because everybody's using technical tools to be creative. If you're a producer, you're using a DAW, you're using FL Studio or Ableton or Pro Tools or Sound, whatever you're using, anything. All of these things are technical tools. Like, yeah, I know you're playing a piano, but technically, that's a technical tool. Yeah, I know you're playing a guitar, but technically, it's a technical tool. Like, all of these things, we're all using technical tools. You feel me? To be creative. Like, how technical of a tool is a pen? How technical of a tool is a paintbrush? Like, there's a certain engineering aspect that went into the development of the paintbrush and how it should be made. I'm sure they went through many iterations of the paintbrush until they came to the conclusion that this is the best way a paintbrush should be made. There was technical stuff that went on behind that. But I think because there's this word engineering attached to the audio part, audio engineer, people think it's so technical. Like we're using an EQ and a compressor, but all the EQ is doing is turning up frequencies or turning down frequencies. Like That's not that crazy. That's not like, oh my gosh, that's so technical. You feel me? That's in our cars. We're using a compressor. Every time the volume gets to a certain level, the compressor turns it down. That's not that crazy. You know, like this is not that technical. We're not coding. Like we're not doing nothing crazy for real. Like when you really think about it, it's not that technical. Yo, can you let me know some of your release song that you mixed that you were referring me to listen to? Yeah. Yeah, I can. Let me do this. Let me go to my Instagram because I recently just posted a video that highlighted the some songs that were released this year that I mixed. And I'm just gonna send that to you. The copy. Let me know if you can click this link. If you can click that link, go to my Instagram. Those are some songs that released this year so far. I mean, some of them I don't know. This is also an aside, but I learned a few years ago to stop judging everybody's mixes because I was mixing so many songs and I realized it's not about me. It's about the artist and the producer's vision. So it's not like this is my mix. This is a collaborative release. I have my input, my there's still a lot of me as far as the mix, but there's a producer who made the beat. There's a songwriter who wrote the song. There's an artist who sang the song or performed the song a certain way. They want it to be a certain thing, and I'm helping them get there. And I'm adding my input on what I think is best. So I'm assuming that there's a lot of other engineers who do something similar. So it's not always like this is my mix. This is how it's supposed to sound. This is what it should be. It's like this was a collaborative way that we got to this. And this is what everybody said they were okay with because this is mainly what the artists and the producers wanted. So yeah, I kind of stopped. But there are some stuff in there that's like, 1.0. Sorry, I'm literally just tapping in LOL and yes, the link works. For sure. Back to what I was saying about the technical versus the creative. Yes, so we're using first off EQ. Yeah, I get back in the day it was a little different because you got this console and it looks like, oh my gosh, there's so many knobs. Yeah, yeah, but like when you really figure it out, it's like, oh, this is actually not that crazy. It just seems crazy. Yes, there is a technical aspect that we have to be proficient at, but there is for songwriting. There's a technical aspect. There's technical aspect for producing. Every part of this has technical aspects. You feel me? So that's how you separate it by just being creative. Like an EQ is a creative tool the same way a piano is a creative tool. I don't know. That's how I think of it. If for a little more practicality, instead of thinking of an EQ as a technical tool, think of it as an emotional tool, as a brightener, as a sweetener. Start using emotional words for the technical tool. When you're using a compressor, think of it as something with a personality, with a character, with a color, instead of thinking of it as like, I have to control peaks. I have to make everything level. I have to control dynamics, decrease dynamic range. Like those are all technical terms, but I don't now that I'm saying this, I never do that when I'm mixing. I always think creative. I always think color, character, personality, vibe, energy, emotion when I'm using a compressor. So it's really the intention is just that. It's the words, the language that you use, the approach that you take. Instead of thinking this vocal is like I don't know, muddy or boom, whatever, I think like, oh, this vocal, it feels a little like, I don't know, like how it feels. It feels a little whatever, like, I don't know, it just feels raw. It doesn't feel polished. It doesn't feel sexy or smooth. Like, how can I EQ in a way that is sexy and smooth, you know? Just using words like that and taking those kinds of approaches can take you from the technical part to being creative, you know. Um, what other tools? I don't know, reverbs, delays, like, yeah, just intent, like, think about it that way. Think about it with emotional words instead of technical words. Hopefully that was a good enough answer. Do y'all think that was a good enough answer? Sending shivers down Groman's spine. Hey, get unmuted, gang. What's good? Oh man, I appreciate it, man. Everybody, hey, get unmuted over here going viral, y'all. Y'all don't know. Y'all need to tap in on let me see, King Nation. I'll put that in the chat too. Hey man, how you doing? How's life? How you feeling? Cause somebody actually just asked me about a song that I mixed or something like that. We can go ahead and listen to this right here. This another one for you. All right, let's see what other question we got. Um, I know the one part in recording and mixing that's the most important and challenging for most people to get right is the vocal recording itself. You ain't lying about that. More on tracking and vocal takes since they can be different if recorded at different days. Don't want to rush you, but getting a mix to translate on various systems is a serious one. Thanks in advance. Oh, okay. Hey. Um, we did the. Maybe I need to do a video about getting the mix to translate on various systems because that was asked a few times already. Um, more on tracking vocal takes. So the first thing, bro, the first thing, people, do you use any analog gear? I use analog gear to record, and I only use one piece of analog gear, which is the DBX286S, and I just use the preamp. That's it. I don't use any, I actually have no desire to use analog gear to mix personally. I do have a large desire to use analog gear to record. I think that is one of the places where obviously you can make anything incredible on anything. You could get a USB mic, go #1 on Billboard. It's possible, you feel me? But I do like when I'm recording, I like to use analog gear, but I only use it for recording. I will have a amazing, beautiful, extravagant studio with a lot of analog gear. Also, I like to record. I'm not one of those people that just want to like only mix. I like to record. It's fun to me. So I want to have, a nice recording setup with some, amazing analog gear. And yeah, but I don't really plan on using it to mix, honestly. This question. So, recording vocals. This is extremely important. Recording is so important, and I think the mixing process gets romanticized, like overly romanticized, to the point that people just forget that you got to record things at least decent, but definitely you want to strive to record them well. People be recording in the craziest situations, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? You can, it's so easy. You could go in, you could do anything. You could get a comforter and you could set up a little tent and you can just get inside of the tent, make a makeshift tent. You really just want to absorb or just get rid of the extra reflections and all of the bounce back that could happen and the extra, like, if you have your AC on, that can get into the mic. If you have your refrigerator on and you're close to it and it's humming, that can get into the mic. If your computer has fan noise, that can get into the mic. So all of those extracurricular activity outside of your microphone, you want to minimize that, which is oftentimes why there has been a booth created, because traditionally you would have gear in a control room and it would make a lot of noise. So you don't want to record where there's like hiss and humming. It's going to get into the microphone. So you got a booth, a sectioned off area where it's quiet and you can record easily, do all the processing you want to do in post. But people be recording in situations where there's a lot of background noise. One, mistake right there. Number two, they be recording in spaces where it's just so much reverb going into the mic. Like you could just snap your fingers or clap and you can hear all of that. That's going into your microphone. What are you going to do with that? Unless that's the sound you're going for. Sometimes that's the sound you're going for, but oftentimes it's not the sound you're going for. And I think that most people are not experienced enough to be able to, if they were going for that sound, they're not experienced enough to dial in that sound right on the way in to where it's going to work, where it would be a lot easier and a lot more controllable to create that in your computer. So minimizing reflections, it's not hard to do. You could use a comforter, you could use some blankets, you could set up, you could use clothes, sweaters, hoodies, like you could do all kind of stuff and make a little makeshift tent around the microphone, a little makeshift booth, and you could do way better stuff with that. But people don't even want to put in just a little bit of effort, just a little bit of effort to record some decent vocals, bro. But yet they want to go into the mixing process and get the mixing engineer to mix all their BS for $50. Absolutely not. You feel me? Collaborative effort. It was, hey man, it was all collaborative effort. That's a fact. It's just everybody doing their job. You feel me? That's what happens when, you know, Curry hitting jumpers. What you call it? Dang, I forgot bro name. The dark skinned dude who be beating everybody up. Fuck. But him getting rebounds when they used to have Iguodala doing his thing. His name gonna come to me in a second. The start with a D. DeAndre. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Chaotica eyeball. So I think there is a. This is a. Oh my gosh. This is a Draymond Green. Dang, I said DeAndre. It's crazy. I knew it started with a D. I forgot. But yeah, that's crazy. That was terrible actually. If I was a white person, that would seem racist low key. But anyway, Chaotica eyeball. This is a wow, what a question, because the Chaotica eyeball for at a professional level is a bad investment. Okay. It's not something that I would want to use or I would buy. But if you are in the market where you're not going to put the effort in to treat your space and record vocals properly, there's a market for people who want to just do that and get something recorded without it being as bad. And you can do that with the Chaotica eyeball. So I'm not totally dismissing the product. It's just not what I would want to use. And it's definitely not the best, but it's the same with, this is where this conversation crosses over. It's the same with like plugins. There's a lot of plugins that are made today, but the target is specifically for beginners and people who don't know how to mix. Now, I wouldn't use that, but I could understand the market of people who don't know how to mix and they just want to like get something sounding like okay so they can just listen to their song, you know, even though it doesn't sound great, but it's at least listenable now, you know. So it's one of those things. You would do so much better, because when you think about it, it's like the Chaotica eyeball. It's an eyeball, you know. Now your room, if you even think about it in theory, if it worked perfectly, I think all it do is just make it does make vocal sound muddy. If you think about the science behind it, now we're getting technical, right? So it's an eyeball, so it's created. We have never, first of all, nobody has ever heard vocals inside of something like this. Like, that is fucking my brain up already. To hear, anytime we've ever heard a vocal, it's been in an open space of some sort. You know, even if we're in a super small room, we've never heard vocals in such a small contained space as the size of someone's head. So if you speak into a microphone in that kind of space, it's gonna like sound weird. It's gonna sound weird. You know, that's weird, right? But what it attempts to do is cancel out everything going on outside of it, because everything going on outside of it is screwed up. So I get the idea and the concept of it, but it's the capture. The capture isn't actually like natural sounding. It's kind of weird, you know? Um, yeah. Yeah. That's what it is. You feel me? All right. Let's go on to another mixing different 808s. Let's see. One on 808s, how to keep them in their space, how to keep them up front and working with different ones, the Zay, CTM, and spins, for example. Nobody's ever heard vocals inside of something like it, but nobody has, bro. Like, I mean, now we have, I guess, because people are doing it, but like, that's such an unusual way for our ears to hear a vocal, to hear a sound in general, you know? Like, we always hear sound in some type of space. So it's weird. Now, even if you're using a booth and the space is acoustically treated, there are still little bits of reflections and there's still a naturalness to the vocal sound. Like we say dry, but it's not actually dry. You know, it's not completely dry. If you've ever gone into one of those chambers where it is actually dry and there is no reflections, that's weird. That is super trippy. You feel me? Because it's so foreign and unusual to our brains. We now cannot locate where sound is in the sound field. So it's it's just unusual. No, I feel it though, because that's not how naturally hear things this way. Exactly, yes, it's not at all. Not at all. It's crazy. But it can work to a certain extent. Like I've mixed songs where people recorded in those, and I've literally, there's one example. It's this artist that I work with from Detroit, and he used to record just in his open space or whatever. And I actually suggested that he try the chaotic eyeball, because I know he not finna try to figure out how to treat his booth, and he not trying to like set up a little makeshift tense booth situation. So I was like, bro, first off, the way you're recording is trash. But second off, try the chaotic eyeball. See if that works for you. And it worked because it was now dry. Now it is muddy and it sounds weird, but I can work with EQ and automation to kind of get it in a usable space. It's still not like a 10 out of 10 vocal recording and vocal sound, but it's listenable. You know, it works. With this one with the different 808s, how to keep them in their own space. This is something that people be asking a lot actually, and I think it's because like if you make beats, so before I was mixing, I used to make beats, but when you're making a beat and you have an 808, it's like it depends on the song too. But say for example, in this, when you're talking about a Zaytoven 808 CTM spins, obviously it's probably hip hop, probably rap, probably trap, stuff like that. The 808 is more important than a lot of things in the production. So you just make sure it's more important than a lot of things in the production. Like you want to make sure the melodies aren't conflicting with the 808. You want to, if you add another bass, you want to make sure that's not conflicting with the 808. So what you do, like you just leave the 808 alone, honestly, and you make everything else work with the 808. So if I'm mixing a song these days, it's like I'll mix the drums first and I'll mix them with the 808, and I'll kind of just mix the drums around the 808. So the 808 is like, let me see, what song is this? Oh no, there's no 808 in this song. Never mind. But I'll mix the drums around the 808, and then I will mix the vocal with the 808 up. So they're all working together with their own like special relationship and context with each other. Yeah, I guess reverse engineering, but it's like this is the context of the type of song. Because if it's like a future record, you know, or something like where the 808 is super important. It's the same thing as like if it's a pop record where the vocal is the most important thing. Well, you mix everything around the pop vocal because That's the most important thing. So it has to work with the pop vocal. But in rap, there's this like conversation between the lead vocal, or trap specifically, conversation between the lead vocal and the 808. So you kind of want to mix those together so that conversation is happening appropriately, and then let everything else work with that. Like, yeah, the melody plays its role and whatever, but the 808 is most important. So you just let that be most important. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that well, but I really don't do that much to 808s for real. I might do subtle EQ with the SSL, like maybe just to set the low end right. Sometimes it might be too much bass or not enough bass, so I'll turn the bass up and down depending on the context. The only other thing I might do is blend in some distortion if it's like a super subby low 8, but the melody note part of the, more like the note part of the 808 needs to cut through more. I'll blend in some like distortion subtly to get that note part of the 808 to cut through more. That's really it. I might dip out some low mids if it's too boomy or something. And again, I'll probably do that with the SSL, the E channel normally. Yeah, that's pretty it. No, it definitely does. Lituation. All right. Um, I think I could use some tricks on multi-band compression. I don't use multi-band compression anymore, really rarely. I use a C4/C6, but have been having a hard time hearing if I like it or not. In theory, if I compress a range of -3 at 5K and gain it +3, it should be where I want with more control. Oh, that's a question. But I am either not grasping the concept or not doing it correctly. Using multiple reverbs like plate, hall, and slap could be a good one too. Okay. So multi-band compression, I see this idea. This is something that always confused me when I was first starting to learn compression as well. People would say, okay, if you compress -3 to 5 dB, you want to gain it up. Like, say if I'm compressing 3 dB, you want to gain it up 3 dB. So you're like, you're matched. But I'll be like, it's not though. I'd be like, this actually now sounds louder. It's not matched. I would find it be somewhere like 1.5, maybe 2 dB at the max, or maybe less. So not necessarily. Multi-band compression makes things sound cagey, or like phasey or cagey to me. I rarely use it as well. Yeah, I used to. You know what's interesting? I used to use it a lot, especially, well, not a lot. A lot is an overstatement, bro. Facts. Exactly right. See, I know I don't be tripping, bro. I think that I be tripping sometimes, but thank you. This is helpful. This is helpful for me because I'll be like, maybe I'm tripping, maybe I'm doing it wrong. But what they told me on YouTube, it's just not working out for me. Um, so that's. But yes, I agree. Like, it definitely sounds phasey, and it sounds like this is something that I realize I'm kind of sensitive to, and I don't like it, is when I use multi-band compression, there are these crossover frequencies to create the bands. And there's like a phase reversal or something weird happening with the phase on the crossover points. And I just didn't like that sound. Once I started hearing it, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. So I stop using them. And if I ever need to use a multi-band compression type thing, I just use dynamic EQ, which is way more flexible than multi-band compression. It's like better. But when the times where I use multi-band compression, because he did say tricks on multi-band compression, I would use them on background vocals. That's literally like, there's two main places I use multi-band compression now that I think about it. Background vocals, and if I get a drum stem and I can't go in and mix the drum, like I don't have the kick, the snare, the hi-hat separated. Those are the times where I really use dynamic EQ in a multi-band fashion, so I don't get the phasey crossover situation. But on background vocals, I um I use multi-band I use dynamic EQ in a multi-band fashion on background vocals, and I use it in dual mono so that the left and the right can work independently. And I oftentimes use it in that case because there are frequencies that kind of fluctuate a little too much in background vocals, and I kind of want them to stay tucked. If I do want them to stay tucked, I want them to stay tucked a little bit behind the lead vocal, and that helps me to do it in a way that compression can help with, but to me, sometimes compression overdoes that and it changes things too much. It's just certain frequency ranges that I just want to tuck a little bit. I don't want it to fully change the dynamic of the performance of the background vocals. I just want those frequency ranges to just relax. So I use multi-band or dynamic EQ in that way on background vocals. On a drum stem, when I don't have access to the actual drum tracks, like the individual files, I will do that to maybe expand the top end on a snare, create some smack on the snare or some punch on a kick drum, because I can't go in and do it individually just directly on the channel. So I'll do it to kind of transient shape and just overall shape the drum track as a whole on a drum stem. That's really the only times that I use multi-band. It's not really multi-band compression, it's like dynamic EQ, but in a multi-band fashion. That's the only time I use it. Do you ever use saturation VSTs? Absolutely. Sawtooth saturation is goated, bro. You talking about saturation knob? I use it a lot. Oh, good strategy for background vocals. Hey, let's go. Good guy. Hey, man. Hey, this is what I'm here to do. I'm telling you. I was saying earlier, this might be a slept on video, but it's really going to be quite practical. I think a Q&A is one of the best ways. Like, you can literally ask whatever you want to ask. And this is my anecdotal advice. You know, a lot of people use multi-band compression and it works amazingly well for them. It just don't work for me. I don't know. I just don't like the phasey sound. It messes with my ears. Oh, and then also he asked, oh, saturation knob. Yeah, saturation knob is goated. I still use that to this day. Some saturation plugins that I use Black Box. I use that on a mix bus often, but on a low percentage. I use, what else do I use? Lo-Fi from Pro Tools, goated. One of the best stock Pro Tools plugins ever created. I use Decapitator, goated, from Sound Toys. If you're not using Decapitator, you're wildin'. That's what I'm talking about. C-Dub Age. What else do I use? It's a lot, honestly. I'm trying to think though. You know what's crazy? I just released that video where I talk about this. I just released it right before this live stream. That was a long video. It took me a long time to edit that video down. There was a whole lot of yapping in that video. But anyway, I use Spectre sometimes, which is a EQ saturation kind of thing. I mean, yes, it's an EQ, but no, it's not an EQ. It's basically you're boosting saturation like an EQ. I use that sometimes. I use Devil Lock from Sound Toys as well. Dang, there's a lot, but I'm having trouble thinking of them right now. Those are some off the top of my brain. Removing and taming resonance. Thanks again. A video on how you go about removing or taming resonances would be very useful for me. Okay, I don't mean to sound condescending on this question, but to me, this is so straightforward. I think about all of this as like if something's too loud or too low. So and when he's talking about a resonance, that's an overly resonant frequency or frequency range. And it's overly resonant because it's annoying or it hurts your ears or it's harsh or something like that. So when I hear those, this is gonna sound simple. I just turn them down. That's all. I just turn them down, you know, with a static EQ cut. Now, let me be more specific because this is the practical way that I do it. So we were messing with EQ. We were messing this earlier. So like, say for example, I'm listening to a vocal. Let's actually play this vocal. We'll do this so we're not hearing anything, but we can still see the analyzer. So I'm listening. Let me turn. Okay, let me turn the analyzer on. Let me mute this. Okay. Right. So say I'm listening to a vocal And you don't want to do this by eye. That's where you first mess up. But we're going to just have this up because we can hear and talk or whatever. So say there's something in the top end that is just hitting my ears too much. I make the assessment, is this happening all the time throughout the entire vocal? If it is, then I normally actually cut. I'll cut like this, and then because I've been doing this for a little bit, I guess I know where it is kind of. I know like this this close to where it will be. And then I'll cut right there and I'll kind of close my eyes and I'll just go back and forth and I'll scan until it disappears. And then once I find that, I'll close my eyes again, I'll reset this to 0 and I'll turn it down until it goes away. That's it. If it's that simple, which for me, most of the time it is that simple. And that is what I do when it's happening all the time throughout the majority of the vocal. Now, if it's only happening every now and then, normally it's happening on certain words or certain notes. We're not going to get into why it could be on certain words or certain notes, but normally it's happening on certain words and certain notes. And this is important because, especially if they're singing or there's a melodic approach to their performance, they're going to be hitting these notes like on purpose. So I will bring up clip effects. I will hit option 6 and I will enlarge this and say I'm listening to this vocal, and every time he says this word, which is a certain note, there is a harsh ringy frequency. Now what some people might do is they might use dynamic EQ, but that's going to affect the entire performance still, because dynamic EQ operates off a threshold, not necessarily off of like a note or a frequency that rings. It's just a threshold, you know? So it's like I could be more specific and more precise. So I'll chop this up, I'll select this. I have a little preset called notches, and I will find that note and I will dip that specific frequency out, or frequencies. Sometimes it's 2, and I'll just dip that out on my preset, and then I can hold down command, click 1 right here and save that. So anytime that specific note or that word comes back again, if it was right here, I could just select right here, hit B, and then I can click 1, and now it's good to go. So I basically created my own dynamic EQ technically, but this is super clean. You don't hear it. You can't like it works so good. It's crazy, you know? So that's all I do. That's it. You feel me? That's it. That's how I do it. Um, I the only time I really use dynamic EQ is when normally I use it on low mids, because there is like this is more so for a modern vocal sound, because there is this consistent low end that is now popular on modern vocals. And to achieve that, you kind of need a consistent low end sometimes, but it's only if you hear the problem that the low end isn't consistent. And oftentimes it just comes from people moving back and forth from the mic. So because of how like frequencies shoot out to our ears, these frequencies, you can make them feel more consistent throughout the entire song without much dynamics. But with the low end fluctuates a lot more, even though you can do like a static EQ move and it works pretty much the same throughout the entire vocal. But the low end or the low mids, like kind of from this area, what's this, like maybe 500 down, 600 down, or whatever, it can kind of fluctuate. So sometimes I use dynamic EQ in these areas just to get a more steady low end body to the vocal. But I don't know why recently I haven't been doing that. Maybe because I said F the modern sound, I don't know, but I haven't been doing that much. But sometimes if I'm doing something that's more pop leaning or it's just straight up pop, you kind of got to go that route to get the low end more consistent. um yeah, everything else for me most of the time is very static, just static moves. If I'm in a rush, then I will and it doesn't sound invasive, then I will do maybe a little dynamic EQ somewhere in this range, or maybe even up top sometimes. But normally a static move gets me there. So that's how I do that. Lituation. I'm glad that was great. Let's see what else we got. Uh, volume balancing. I saw a recent video that you did where you were demonstrating volume balancing. Definitely will be a game changer for many reasons if they watch it. I already did a video on volume balancing, so we're gonna skip that one because I have an entire video dedicated to volume balancing, and I think that what I would explain right now is not better than that video. What is this? What's on my mix bus? What does your mix bus look like, bro? And what's the importance of mix bus processing? Ooh, what a question. So my mix bus is one of the things that changed the most. This is my mix bus, these 5 slots. This down here is mastering. So these 5 slots are mix bus. They're saved, reserved for mix bus processing. My first approach to the mix bus is automation. Do I want to, in this case, I have, let's go up here. Let's close that. Let's bring this down. I don't do this on every mix, but I did it on this mix. On the last hook, this plugin comes on and the overall mix gets just a little bit brighter, 0.07. Like just a little bit brighter. Is it just brighter? Maybe I did something to the low end. No, I didn't. Just a little bit brighter. So the first part is automation. Can I automate the hook to get a little bit brighter? Sometimes I'll automate the hook to get a little more saturated or a little more dense or whatever, you know, like these are things where you're kind of doing it in the shadows, but it's like an emotional thing. It's not about, oh yeah, it's the last hook, so it got to get brighter. Maybe it doesn't. You got to listen to the emotion of the song. You got to just listen. You got to feel it, you know, because sometimes I'll have it so the first hook gets a little bit brighter and then the verse goes back down in normal brightness, and then the last hook gets even brighter than the first hook. But in this case, I did not do that because it didn't need it, you know. So you have to make decisions based off the context and the emotion of the song. But that's kind of what I think about first, and that's a part of me mixing. It's just whatever. It could be anything. It's creative. You feel me? The next part is creative as well, but the mix bus is one of the most important like channels or tracks of your mix because it affects everything in your mix. So you kind of, this is oftentimes where a lot of people go wrong because you need to take the mix bus pretty serious. Like you can't just put anything on the mix bus. Like, well, you can, but you want to, I want to be intentional about what I put on the mix bus because it literally affects everything. You could have an amazing, incredible mix and then just mess it up because you wanted to put a new plugin or whatever on your mix bus and you don't even really know what it's doing. Like you want to, like it literally affects every single thing in your, it affects every single track, you know? So like you gotta like be aware of that and pay attention to what happens to everything when you put some on your mix bus. Um, so my mix bus oftentimes is pretty minimal because I paid attention to every track in the song for the most part, and I've made sure that those things are speaking in the ways that I want them to speak. But there are times where there's a creative thing you can do on the mix bus, like there's a creative distortion effect sometimes that might be cool, where every time the kick or the 808 hits, the whole mix subtly like crackles up a little bit or subtly distorts. Like that could be a cool thing sometimes, and that could be achieved on the mix bus. But when you do that, you kind of have to spend a little time with it and see how it's affecting everything else. So I'll do creative things like that sometimes as well. The next part is just like, I don't know, all of it is mixing and emotional based, creative based, like, but density, glue, color, like an overall color for your entire mix sometimes could be cool. Just like a nice kind of like frame on the mix, you know, a nice sheen sometimes. It just depends on the song. Like maybe sheen is bad for a record. It just depends. It's all over the place, bro. I don't know. I don't know how to give this to y'all right for real. Pause. But that's what my mix bus is for. The next part is the mastering part. I print my mix with no mastering processing on it before I do any of this stuff right here. So this right here, this 0.0, this is my mix before I put any of these plugins on, because I want to A/B my mix for what I want or what I think the record should sound like. I want to A/B that against any limiting that I have to do to bring the level up. Because if the song is going to be loud, I want to mix the song like it's supposed to be loud. I'm not going to mix it like super dynamic and open, because I think this is just my approach. Again, this is anecdotal, but this is what I have found to work with me, because there was a time where I really struggled to get a song loud-ish, you feel me? Until I realized from studying loud songs that, oh, you just have to make trade-offs. You know, you have to let go of low end. You have to let go of dynamics in a vocal performance. You have to let go of volume swings, like the hook getting louder than the verse and there being kind of an explosion. You just have to let go of stuff. I wasn't willing to let go of stuff, you know, so it was my issue. But I realized oftentimes the people who are wanting to be loud, they were never even holding on to those things because they never knew it existed. They didn't know that these amazing songs back in the day, like if you think about what's that song? I think it's a song by Megan Trainor. It's an old Katy Perry song. I forgot. It's an old Katy Perry song that's like a super massive mega hit, but you would not believe how loud that song gets as it grows. It's a pop song, and it's like not an old song. You know, this is when there was an actual loudness war going on, and people were trying to win that thing for real. And that song is not loud in the beginning, and it grows, but nobody knows that because nobody's really listening like that. And the same thing happens with everybody else's song, but this is a whole nother aside. People don't study everybody else's mixes like popular release songs the way they study their own songs. They don't give mixed notes and mixed critiques on like a Katy Perry song. They don't sit there and listen to it 50 times and be like, okay, yeah, I need the mixer to change, because it's not their song. They just sit down and listen to it. That's how everybody listens to their song, except them. And that's okay. But I say that to say, I did not want to give up the dynamics of records, but I realized, oh, that's how you have to get loud. So you have to like fake people out with fake dynamics or other ways to feel like there's some change happening, but there's not really any change happening. So once I realized that, it's really about mixing for loudness. It's not your master that makes the song -876 LUFS. You just have to give stuff up. So I try to mix the song the way I think it should be, and then I'll make it louder with very little limiting. It's usually not a lot of limiting because I've already mixed the song in the way that I think it should be for what the record is. So this stuff here doesn't do that much. Like a dB or two max normally, like not that much. But I want to A/B it against my mix to make sure that if there is any change happening because of the limiter, I account for that. And that's where this little subtle EQ comes in. There was a little bit of this that was going away, and it got a little bit too bright in this area. So I've just adjusted for that because that's what the limiters did to the mix. And then I'm good to go. Do you use any clippers? Yes. I rarely use clippers on the mix bus unless I'm going for some type of sound. But there are times where I use clippers on the mix bus, especially if I'm trying to get loud. I'll use clippers on the mix bus. But the clippers that I tend to use, I use this BX. I use this one right here. It's the one I tend to use the most on an entire mix on specific sounds. Sometimes I will use JST clip. I use this one on drums sometimes. I use what else? I used to use I used to use this, but for some reason my license isn't working anymore. I don't know what's going on with that. So I haven't been using it. I don't know what's going on with this. So I don't really use that anymore, but I used to. Every now and then I'll use, oh, the knot clipper. Sometimes I use the knot clipper. Oh, I forgot. I use the gold clip sometimes on basses, on drums sometimes. But I like gold clip track. I don't really use the full gold clip plugin. I like this one better for some reason, so I just use this every now and then. Uh, that's pretty much it. I haven't really gotten into trying the neutron clipper. I haven't really tried the kilohertz clipper. I tried zebra clipper a little bit. I've used it a couple times, but I haven't really gotten into it fully. I think I just need to spend a little time with those other ones, but those what I use. I use IK and knock. That's what's up. Yeah, the IK one is I mean, and knock. Those are like, you know, the ones, the popular ones. Ooh, this is a good question. Um, any advice on how you go about cohesively mixing multiple tracks in different genres for an album would be sick. You've mentioned approaching each track with the different touches necessary. How might you maintain that ethos when putting together a multi-track project? So I guess mixing for an album. This is a great question because I didn't even realize this until I was making this post on Instagram, but it's 4 albums that was released this year that I mixed, and I didn't even realize that. But I just finished mixing an album. And we did this because there was rapping songs, there was singing songs, there was melodic rap songs. I what I do is I mix oftentimes there's a single, okay? So in this case there's a song called Do Re Mi, and that was the single. The song I mixed after that, I don't remember exactly, but I think it might have been a song called Switch. So when I mix the next song, I start off mixing it for that song. What's best for that song. And then I will bring in Do Re Mi, which was that initial single. I'll bring that into my session so that I can A-B and make sure that, not that it sounds the same. I don't care about it sounding the same. I just want it to feel like it's on the same album. um Aesthetically, but I don't want that feeling to harm the song, because there are times where you need to go into another world for a song and then come out of it to go to a different world. That's okay. Like, we've all listened to a lot of albums. I listen to albums almost every day, and every song doesn't sound the same when you listen fully. Now there are some albums where every song does sound, like, not the sound the same, but they sound mixed the same. And sometimes that's good, especially if it's a band and they're playing the same exact instruments the entire song. Maybe that's good, but still, for the emotion of the record, there might be certain records where the drums are like the main emotional thing about the song, and then there's other ones where it might be the piano, even though there are drums, and then there's other ones where it might be the vocal. Even though all these instruments are playing for each song, there might be different songs where the focus and the importance is on different instruments, like, which will cause a different balance that's needed, different EQ, different just whatever that's needed for that record. So specifically on this album, on Switch, it's a more bass heavy record. Like, that 808 needs to be thumping. Every record on the project wasn't like that. So that song may have more low end, or it does have more low end than the other songs. That's okay. You feel me? Like, the vocals may be a little bit more tucked on that one than some of the other ones, where it's just strictly about his vocal performance and you keying in on what he's saying the whole entire song locked in. That's okay. That's okay. Because we're world hopping. We're living in his reality. You feel me? So it has to work for the context for all of that to be believable. But I do bring some of those songs in to the session and A-B them, just to feel like they not it's a weird, like, that they belong, but the belonging doesn't hurt where this current song is sitting. So that's kind of how I do that. And then at the end, I'll bring them all together and make sure they flow in together level wise. You feel me? If I'm gonna be like mastering the project, but if a mastering engineer is gonna be mastering it, then I just let them do what they do. All right. Let me see. C Dub Bay says, do you use any other flavors of channel strips for different color vibes? Yes. I, as y'all know, I just love SSL stuff, but outside of SSL, I use Neve. Honestly, the main one I use, Sheps 73. I use this one from Waves. I also use the one from UAD, but for some reason I like the color of this one a little bit better. The one from, if I want something that's like warmer, I guess, I don't know, I like this one. But if I want something that's a little more, um, not clean is not the word that I want to say, but they just sound different. But I'll use both of these. So the Neve, I use the stock channel strip from Pro Tools. I use this one as well. Now this is not, a color, but I use that. I use API. I more so use this one from UAD though, when I use the API. And I use this for, I mainly use it for the EQ, honestly. But sometimes I will use the compressor. I'm not really, the compressor is cool. It's not like, it's a solid compressor to me. What other channel strips do I use? I use the Harrison one. I don't use this one a lot, but I use this when I want something that feels more vintage actually. Like there's just very broad musical curves on this EQ, and it has a kind of just an old sound, like it kind of has an older sound a little bit. So I don't use this a lot though, because obviously, we're working on modern records, but sometimes when things need to feel a little older, this could this could work. Love API. Yeah, API is lit, Neve. That's what I want next. What do you have the Waves? Do you have any subscriptions or anything? I also use this other Neve from Plugin Alliance console, and I forgot what board this is supposed to be emulating, but I like the EQ on this. It's got a nice sound. I use this one sometimes. Those are the main ones. Plugin Alliance also has some other SSL ones. I use those sometimes too, but they're still SSL. So those are the main ones for real. Every now and then I use the Focusrite one from Plugin Alliance. Focusrite. Every now and then I use this, but not often. I don't know. I ain't gonna lie. I look at this and I feel like a kid again. Feels like Rugrats or something. It just feels so childlike, playful. No subs, just purchase. All right then, player. What API, like what company or what plugin manufacturer do you use that you've got an the API plugin from? How much time we got left? We got 20 minutes left, guys. Ask away. We got some more questions left in here, though. I kind of touched on this question, but I have BXUAD API. Okay, for surely. That's what's up. You got some good stuff then. You're good. Um, how I reference mixes and how I choose reference tracks. So, this question, when you compare your mix to a reference track, aka open book test, how do you do that? Can you walk us through the process of comparing your mix to reference tracks? Also, how to choose a reference track. So this is, I'm gonna answer how to choose a reference track first. If I am working on a West Coast hip hop song, I am going to choose other West Coast hip hop songs. Now I know this sounds straightforward, but it's not always like this. So I'm gonna use West Coast hip hop songs, but I'm also going to always have, there's about 4 or 5 songs that I always have on my reference list, and they are just songs that I have listened to like too many times. And I always have those on there as somewhat of a palate cleanser because I know how bright this record is. I know how the low end hits. I know what the punch feels like on this record. So I can easily compare everything to those like true norths. So those 4 or 5 records are always on my current mix playlist that I create on Apple Music. And so if I'm mixing a West Coast hip hop song, I'll bring other West Coast hip hop songs on, but I'll also bring modern songs for like more recent songs today that I like that may not even be West Coast hip hop. Maybe it's a trap record, maybe it's a New York record or whatever, but I'll bring a few other things, and I don't want to have a whole lot of songs on there. I want to have maybe like maximum 20 songs. Like I'm not trying to have more. I'm not trying to have too many songs on there. Um, but just so that I could listen to where balances are as far as just levels, where punch is sitting today, versus maybe where it used to sit, maybe where this is sitting, where I think it needs to go. I'm thinking about so many things in my brain, like transients, overall tonal balance, like just EQ, brightness, warmth, mid range, low end, energy, vibe, feeling, emotion, groove, dance, all of this. I'm thinking about all of these things at the same time. Just so much information flowing through my brain as I'm doing it. And that's how I choose the songs. Sometimes there will be certain songs I know I want to go in that direction of a vocal aesthetic or a drum aesthetic or whatever, and I'll bring those onto the playlist as well. I will gain match the songs on the playlist to my mix so I'm not getting confused by the level. I do this by ear, it's not perfect, but that's what I do. Then, the process of comparing my mix to reference tracks. On my mouse, I can hit a certain button and it will play and pause Apple Music for me. So I could stop my mix on my control surface right here and hit this button on my mouse and it'll play Apple Music wherever I left off on playing a song off Apple Music. So I can quickly just A-B really fast like that. I could go to Apple Music, switch to another song, go to a certain part in the song where I want it to start from or whatever, and then I can A-B that. And I normally only listen to like 10 seconds of the reference that I'm listening to and then go back to my mix. And I will say for like drums, if I'm trying to get a punchy kick drum, I'll go to a song that has a punchy kick drum and I'll play the section where the drums are playing and I'll A-B back and forth to that and put my hand on the speaker to feel how the punch feels and just try to achieve that, through my mix, and I'll go back and forth and I'll make sure that everything is level matched well so I'm not getting confused by the level change. I'll do that. I'll do the same thing with the vocals, just going back and forth trying to like get in that same vein or whatever if I'm trying to mimic or whatever. But normally I'm not trying to mimic, I'm just trying to refresh my brain on what's like normal and accepted or what's cool, stuff like that. And then a lot of times that will be a certain phase and then I'll just let that go and I'll be in my own world for a while. But then I'll come back and I'll check again and make sure I haven't gone off the deep end and done something crazy. And then I do that whole process for a little bit and then I'll get back to what I was doing. That's how I do that. Can you elaborate on what instruments you use the different strips on? Okay, okay. What a fantastical question. So the main, wait, SSLG, okay. So I use the SSL 4000G and E from SSL on anything from lead vocals, literally on anything except the mix bus. I will use this on. I've just never used it on the mix bus, which is kind of weird. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I just haven't done it yet. But I'll use these on anything except the mix bus so far. But maybe I'll try that now. And that goes for the Waves ones, the Plugin Alliance ones, the whoever ones, any SSL that I use, I'll use it on anything, everything. It don't matter. This is my go-to like EQ for tone shaping, whatever. I use that. Yeah. API. Let's go UADX API. I sometimes use this on lead vocals. I use this on drums. I'll use it on live bass. Sometimes I'll use it on piano. I'll use it on guitars. Those are the main places I use those. Neve. We'll just go UADX Neve. Sometimes I'll use this on lead vocals. I will use this on live bass. Sometimes I'll use it on live drums. I'll use it on acoustic guitars. Sometimes I'll use it on acoustic piano. Let's go to BX console in. I will use this on buses normally. Lead vocal bus, or just vocals bus in general, excuse me. Kick and bass bus. Those are normally the places where I use this. I subtly use the EQ. It has a nice, interesting top end on it. There's a certain like sweetness to this channel strip that can sound nice on a vocal bus or on a kick and bass bus or just a bass bus or whatever in general. That's where I normally use this. What's the other one? Focusrite. I use this on background vocals sometimes. I will use this on a lead vocal bus. I mean, on a vocal bus sometimes. I don't know why I keep saying lead vocal bus. On a vocal bus sometimes, or on a music bus sometimes. And it's mainly just for the EQ. On background vocals, sometimes I will use the compression on background vocals. Just a little, just a smidgel touch. But rarely, actually, rarely, but sometimes, just a little. Are there any other ones that I'm missing? Oh, Harrison. 32 channel. I'll use this on lead vocal sometimes and on live drums, on live bass, electric guitars. I think that's pretty much it. I have a $20 headphone and no audio interface, just a laptop. When I DIY mix my music, the tonal shape isn't accurate. Can you suggest headphone calibration or something to get a flat response? Absolutely not on $20 headphones. There's nothing you can do, bro. You're cooked. You're cooked, brother. It's a wrap for you. It's not going to work out. I'm sorry. That's the truth. Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't know what you're gonna do. I think the best bet is for you to learn those headphones as best as you can. They probably aren't the best. They probably aren't that good. But I would listen to music on those headphones every single day for hours. And I'm talking about specific music, like the best music in the world, the best mixed music in the world, only on those headphones for hours. Your best bet is to study those headphones like you study yourself in the mirror or something. I don't know, but there's nothing you can do. There's no headphone correction that's gonna fix the $20 headphones. I don't know about that one. You're just gonna have to get used to it, or you're gonna have to get some better headphones, or you're gonna have to get some monitors. You don't have to get like super expensive monitors, you know. Get some monitors and treat your room. But if it's like a budget thing, which I understand, we've all been there before, at least I've been there before, bro, you're gonna have to just learn them headphones to the best of your ability. Now, it's not gonna be perfect. Maybe it will. Who knows? But it's probably not gonna be perfect. You're just gonna have to like learn them. Sorry. I'll upgrade equipment once I get out of school, but what's the difference between mixing in a flat and mixing in consumer headphones? between mixing in flat and mixing in consumer headphones. So what's the difference between mixing in check reverb for wait, what's the difference for mixing in flat headphones versus mixing in consumer headphones? Is that what the question is? I always check reverb for deals on used gear too. Facts. I got my monitors used. And whenever I get some new ones, I'm gonna probably get those used. Unless Zounds look out for the boy. But hey man, y'all gotta help me out with these affiliate links so Zounds can rock with me, bro. Cause I don't think it ain't going too well for me right now. Ethan, what's good? I've been good, man. Just been out here grinding. You know what I'm saying? We got how much more time we got left on the stream? We're getting close to the end. Oh, we got 10 minutes left on the stream, guys. It's almost a wrap. But man, I've been good. I've been blessed. How about yourself? How have you been? Yeah, cause if I know how a song sounds in my consumer headphones, my mix should be flat too, I guess. Firstly, what monitors you use, fams? I use the JBL LSR 308s. They are extremely inexpensive, some would say cheap monitors, but I've been using them for since 2016, 10 years, and I know them. But at some point, I might get some new ones. But I'm always gonna keep these because I know them so well. So it's like, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about this before I answer this question. When you say if I know how songs sound in my consumer headphones, my mix should be flat too. Your mix is not supposed to be some mixes are supposed to be flat, but every mix ain't supposed to be flat. Like flat sounds boring, right? Why would you want your mix to sound flat? But also what you want is not necessarily flatness. Let's just think about it this way. What I want to hear in my headphones is what's coming out of the computer if I'm using the DAW. I just want to hear accurately exactly what's coming out of the computer. I don't want to be like, oh, it sounds like it's too bright in my headphones, but when I go in my car, it sounds like it's too dull. I'm hearing inaccuracies. So it's not really about being flat. That's not how you want to think of it. This is not how I think of it. I think about accuracy. Am I hearing exactly what's coming out of the computer? That's it. So with these headphones that are $20, this is why I'm saying you have to learn them, which is terrible because it's very, very difficult to do. It's difficult to run an algorithm on your brain knowing that, oh, these headphones are super bright, so I have to mix dull, or the low end is I can't hear the low end for real on these headphones, so I have to mix light on the low end. Because when you're mixing, you mix off of instinct, off of feeling, off of emotion, experience, off of your Rolodex of what you've heard throughout your entire life experience. But if you're a listening medium, which is so important, it's super important. Like we talk about plugins, we talk about all that, but if you can't even hear what's coming out the speakers accurately, it doesn't matter what plugin, what gear you have, what anything, what converters you have. Like if you can't hear accurately what's playing out of your computer, it's difficult to make good decisions, you know? So, this is a daunting task that you have to tackle from learning your headphones, but that's your best bet. It's just not a good way to go about it still. So I don't really think about it being flat. I just think about it being accurate. I want to sit in the sweet spot of my studio and listen to my monitors and be like, yeah, the way the low end sounds, that's how low end is supposed to sound. If you listen to released records, you don't want to tune it on your own records. I have like 4 or 5 songs that I know like the back of my hand, and I can sit in the sweet spot and I can use those songs to know how things sound in the room, in the sweet spot, and I know if things are off. That's how I gauge. You can also, I shoot, sound like, I got a little mic where I can test and actually see the frequency response in my room, and you can use Room EQ Wizard. You can do all of that stuff. You feel me? But I listen to. This is again anecdotal. I like to listen and go off of what I'm listening to because again, I'm gonna be the one mixing the song, so it needs to work for how I hear. It could be flat on this graph, but if it sounds too bright to me, it's too bright to me. So we're gonna have to fix that, you know? Thank you for answering. Hope you are doing great. Thanks for the content you put out. It really helps kids with a budget like mine. You are welcome, budget like you. You're welcome. I'm glad to help. I'm sorry that was a long-winded answer, but I just like to be thorough. Yeah, so your best bet is to get some decent speakers, some decent studio monitors, and treat your room. Honestly, that's the best situation to achieve. And the goal is to not necessarily, yeah, you want it to be flat, but it translates as being flat when what comes out of your computer is what you're hearing. How do you think AI is going to change the industry? Your analysis of CVs falling was so sick. I didn't even clock that it was AI. Oh man, thank you so much. You know, no, you're doing God's work with such detailed answers. Oh man, thank you kindly. I am working on being more concise with my answers, but it's good that people accept the long-winded answers. Um, this is a good question about AI. This is a great question to wrap the stream up on, so this will be the final one. Um, I don't know what's gonna happen. Truthfully, I don't know what's gonna happen. No clue. But I do think that people are going to embrace AI and they are already embracing it. I do think it's going to be an invaluable tool for creativity. When I say creativity, I mean to create options that the user was not thinking of, which is maybe a weird way to say creativity. I don't know. But say, for example, if I produce a song and I'm like, I don't really know where I want to go, I could put it in AI and AI will spit something back to me different that may be better or worse, or it may give me another idea, another perspective that puts me in a direction that I wasn't going to go down that ends up being great. I think there are going to be people who can write great songs who never had an avenue to get their songwriting going, and they're going to use AI to get their songwriting going, and they're going to make amazing songs. I've heard AI songs that go crazy, and they were written by someone, but AI did the production, the vocal is AI or whatever. I'll say vocal because is it a vocal? Like if it's AI, is it a vocal? I don't know what that is really. It's a synthesized thing. I don't know. But anyway, I've heard some fire AI songs, keeping it 100. And I think the reality of it is there's going to be a large group of people who don't really care that the song is AI and they don't really care to go see the artist live or have a story attached to the artist. But there is also going to be another large group of people who do care about those things. So I think it's going to open up another market the same way we're audio engineers and producers here, the same way the market opened up for us because everybody can get FL Studio. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this loud, but I had FL Studio initially and I didn't, whatever. I just got it. C Dub Beige, thank you for the 199. I appreciate you kindly. I'm grateful, man. Thank you. I thank you, man. I appreciate it. Blessings. Blessings and favor your way, my friend. Thank you. But the same way, like I could start making beats in high school for very little money and work with artists, like that opened up a whole new market for people to make music and to be creative. And I think AI is doing the same thing already, but it's people who don't know how to play, who don't even know like what a C major chord is, or like they don't know anything. They don't know nothing about nothing, but they can make a fire song. You feel me? Like I don't know. I think it's just gonna do so much so quick and it's gonna open up so many different avenues, but I don't really know how it's going to end up. I don't know what it's gonna become, but it's going to be embraced. I don't know what the copyright situation is going to look like, because I know they said if you make an AI song, you can't copyright it, meaning you can't own it, but you can still monetize it. You know, you can still get paid off your streams, but you don't own the copyright. The thing is, like, if somebody was making AI music, do they even care about that? You know, do they care about owning the copyright of that? They maybe they don't. You know, I don't know. But I also see AI being implemented in, like, so many things, bro. Like, so many things. And the truth is, like, I'm in LA. People are using it. Like, artists are using it, producers are using it, songwriters are using it. I mix songs where the artist re-sings the lead vocal, the AI lead vocal, but the backgrounds are AI. The production entirely is AI. The only thing that's human is this lead vocal performance. Like, I've mixed songs like that, and they're cool. They sound dope. But um, I don't know, bro. I don't know what's really gonna happen, but I know that people are going to embrace it. The creatives are going to embrace it, and the consumers, the fans, are going to embrace it. There is going to be some divide. There's going to be people, like, fans who don't rock with AI, and there's going to be fans who don't care, or fans who rock with AI. There's going to be artists or creatives who don't rock with it, and creatives who do rock with it. Some in the middle. Um, but it's not going away. It's not going away for sure. So my recommendation is to learn about it and see if it can help you, see if you can utilize it to do what you're doing better, but to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening and how people are responding to it, because I'm genuinely just fascinated by how this is, again, why I love music too, but, like, I just want to see how people respond to it, you know? This is what I've studied, like, the whole time, you know? Like, when I mix songs and I play them for people, I just want to see how they respond to it. When I used to make songs, I wanted to see how people respond to it. Does it make them dance? Does it make them sad? Does it make them happy? When, so I am my genuine interest when I did the Chris Brown breakdown was to see how people responded to it. And a lot of people was like, they don't care. They love the song. They know Chris Brown can sing. What does he got to prove to me? Like, I like the song, but then there were people who didn't like, and they were completely disgusted. So I think it's going to be a lot of both, and that's okay. We all can feel how we want to feel, and that's beautiful. So yes, I feel you. Thanks for your insight. Thank you, man. Thank you for asking that amazing, fascinating question, man. I wonder, what do y'all think? What do y'all think about AI? You feel me? I've been answering all these questions. Let me ask a question. Let me know what y'all think about it. What y'all think about it? Long answer shows passion. Even if you get concise someday in your communication game, I bet you're still gonna answer long when talking about music. You are probably very correct about that right there. You ain't lying. Well, guys, I'm gonna wrap it on up with that right there. Shout out to C Dub Beige, man. I appreciate the super chat. I believe that's what that's called. I'm grateful. Um, I'm gonna get up out of here, and I'm going to, take me a little pause. Oh, snap. What up? Good insights. Veteran Pro Tools user, 34 years. What's your take on new AI functions in newer Pro Tools? My bad. I ain't mean the 34 years you like that. Um, you've been using Pro Tools for 34 years? I didn't even know it was out that long. Wow, that's crazy. I'm so sorry. Let me chill. Let me relax. Let me chill. I actually don't know about the new AI functions in the newer Pro Tools, which contradicts everything I just said about being on the cutting edge. But I haven't downloaded the new version of Pro Tools because I get a little bit nervous about new updates, because when everything is working smooth and perfectly fine, I just want to keep it smooth and perfectly fine. So I haven't updated yet. But what are the new AI functions in Pro Tools? I hope AI becomes an avenue for creativity, like you were saying, where you can say some description like underwater, hip hop, hi hat, and it makes one. I think they do have that. Mix bling. Appreciate you. I love Jeff Ellis. I love you. Y'all different about mixing. I love Jeff Ellis too. Jeff Ellis is a GOAT. The philosophy and way of looking at music is very different. Y'all talk about life and human connection while mixing. Oh man, this is what it's all about though. Like what else? This is just again my perspective, and it's extremely anecdotal, one-sided. I'd admit maybe, but what else is music about? What else is art about? I don't know. Like, yeah, there's the money side, you can make money. So there's that part, I guess. But like, what are we really doing? Like, what are we doing? I think that people get, okay, yeah, we're going overtime. All right, interface, I'm using the UAD Volt 2. I used to use the Scarlett 18i20. I believe it's generation 2 or 3, I forget. But it broke. And I haven't got it fixed yet. And I had this Volt 2. I just had the Volt 2 laying around. I just had it. I used to take it with me when I would go to other people's situations or studios just in case I needed to interface to record some vocals or whatever and their situation wasn't working. But when Scarlett stopped working on me and I still haven't got it fixed because I don't know what's wrong with me. I need to do that. I just used the Volt 2 temporarily and I just kept using it out of pure not thinking about anything. Um, I consume so much content, it's always about technicalities and industry standards, but my heart says it doesn't matter. There's beauty in artifacts if kept tastefully. Ah, that's YouTube. The only place that happens is on the internet. That's the only place it happens. If you talk to, well, I don't know, YouTube is unfortunately crossing over into real life. So that's scary. But before maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, at least from my experience, the only place I would hear all of this technical, like overly technical stuff was on YouTube or like Instagram. That was it. In real life, or if I talk to just engineers in real life, nobody was talking about that. Yeah, we get geeky and we get nerdy on like monitors and interfaces and sample rate and bit depth and this interface and that interface and plugins and stuff, but it's not like, oh, this technique with the soothe into this, and it was not like how it is on YouTube. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But in real life, and even I also come from like, I wanted to be a producer initially, so I think that's a part of it. The engineering thing kind of just chose me. At the end of the day, no consumer cares what we use in limited. Exactly, they don't care. They don't care at all. I do think there's a hmm. It's like this. We all have phones, right? I have an iPhone. Most people, a lot of people in America, we have iPhones or Androids or whatever we have. I don't care about what is inside this iPhone unless something is wrong. If something is wrong with my phone, I immediately notice it. I know in a matter of seconds something is wrong with my phone. Now, I may not know what it is. No clue what's going on. I don't know what's inside this thing. So I don't know how to fix it. But I know something's wrong. That's what it's like with music. As soon as someone hears something wrong, they know what it is. They just can't say what it is. They can't tell you. It's possible it could be the 1176 on the vocals. It could be compressing too much. They just don't know what an 1176 is, so they can't tell you what it is. They just say, I don't know what's wrong with my phone, but it's doing this. And I don't like that it's doing that. I don't know what's inside of it that you need to do to fix it, but it's doing this and I don't like that. It's the same way that artists be, sometimes. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's doing this and I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, same stuff. So, what people care about is that they have a smooth, easy, fun experience using this phone. And the super smart, technical, and creative people, they do whatever they do inside this phone so that I can have this nice, amazing experience with the phone and I never have to worry about that stuff. That's what we're doing as music creators. Even though we're engineers and we do technical stuff, producers do technical stuff too, artists do technical stuff too, but we're doing technical and stuff. We are also a part of the creative presentation of the art. And we can't forget that, you know, we can't forget that while we are executing technical, like, I don't know, also we're doing certain techniques that the listener just wants to have an emotional reaction to the music. They don't care about an 1176 on the vocal unless it bothers them for some reason. They just want to have an experience. They want to go to a dream world when the song comes on. Like when I go to the movies, I want to be transported into the movie. I don't want to notice that the boom mic crept in one of the scenes or that that cut was weird when it transitioned to the next scene. I don't want to notice any of that. I just want to be transported into the movie. So it's our job to make sure that people are transported into the movie. That's all it's about. Sometimes we do technical stuff to make that happen, but it's purely from a creative standpoint, you know. Long-winded answers, my bad. Do I like spring reverbs? Yes, I like spring reverbs. I actually didn't talk about the spring reverbs in that plugin video, and I feel a little bad about that. So I use Magma Springs. I use, it's a stock spring plugin from Pro Tools that I use. I forgot what it's called. Spring. No, it's not this one. It's Black Spring. Black Spring. I use this sometimes from Pro Tools. I use Magma Springs. Magma Springs. I use this. And then there's another spring that I sometimes use in Space, but I haven't been using it much because Magma Springs kind of just took over. Do I have it still? It's not this spring, but it's one of these springs. It might be this one. I don't know. It's one of these. It's one of these springs. I forgot which one it is, but sometimes I use this spring in Space from Pro Tools. Those are really the only ones that I tend to use for real. Oh, sometimes I use this one too. Every now and then. Not that. SSL has a spring verb? I haven't even tried that. I'm gonna look at that next. I just lied to y'all. I rarely use this. I've used this on one mix that I can remember. I've never used this, but now I'm gonna experiment with it. What? I've never seen this before. This is insane. I've never seen this plugin in my life. Wow, I'm gonna experiment with this later. Silver Spring? Do I have Silver Spring? I don't think I have Silver Spring. I didn't. Silver Spring? No, I don't have Silver Spring. I'm gonna have to Google Silver Spring. Silver Spring plugin. Teletone. Interesting. It looks cute. Go ahead, subscribe to that email list. I don't even think I have any Teletone plugins. Guys, I think I might drop this video unedited. This will be the first time I've done this in a very, very, very long time. Drop a video with no editing. But it feels like so organic and just nice to just kick it with y'all. I want to just have a video out there where it just flows, you know? Ancient dude here. The common thing I see in all good media. Tell me your story. Start me on your vision or mission. Oh, wow. Teletone has great products. Teletone is goated. Sauce plugins. You're missing out. Dang, really? Senpai. Oh, really? Dang, I need to tap in. Okay. Y'all just put me on. I'm finna tap in. I literally don't think I've used any of their plugins. I'm gonna look through it. I got their website up now. I'm gonna check it out. Okay, so I'm going to again try to make this sweet and short. The comment, oh my lord, I just spit a little bit. The common thing I see in all good media. Tell me your story. Start me on your vision or mission. So I have my, first off, I have my personal mission, which is to become the greatest mixing engineer of all time. A great recording engineer as well, but that is my vision, my personal mission. My second mission, which is why I created this YouTube channel, this is an aside of my personal, is to be a voice of, similar to what Ethan was talking about earlier. I, just like all of us, go on YouTube to learn things, to explore, to be introduced to new ideas, to learn about new gear, new plugins, all of that stuff. Just another way to stay curious and learn. But I found myself being like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know. You feel me? I found myself responding that way to a lot of content on YouTube far too often. So I said, instead of like complaining about it, I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to create content that I believe is more transparent, more honest, more like what is actually going on. So that's why I made the YouTube channel. Now, I admit when I first started doing this, it was very innocent and I did not want anything back from it, but, and it's not that I want something back from it. I view this kind of as community service to a certain extent, but it takes effort to do this. It takes time, you know, to build a YouTube channel. I didn't realize that it took this to build a YouTube channel. And the type of person I am, once I get into it, it's like, I'm gonna really do it then. Okay. So I'm gonna build the YouTube channel, but I was just doing it initially with like, it doesn't matter what happens, like I'm just gonna put the content out there. People find it cool, people don't, it's whatever. But then I realized like, oh, in order for this to actually, both have to coexist. In order for me to be the shining light that I kind of want to be, I have to build a YouTube channel so it can reach more people and the light can be bright. So now there's this other side quest of building out the YouTube channel to really let people know the information and the approach to this craft in a way that is simple, but not leaving out important details. The truth as well that I've learned about YouTube is it's difficult to go extremely esoteric and be broad at the same time. And how the YouTube algorithm works is it's going to promote the broad topics, but everybody who watches this channel or in any engineering channel is not necessarily trying to be an engineer, so they don't really care about the things that will give them the best results from a mixing or recording perspective. They just want to get over the hill, they just want to like, they just want a little technique to whatever, you feel me? They're not trying to be great, they just want to be listenable. So I'm still trying to navigate that, trying to navigate how I can still be broad but esoteric in a way that delivers everything that people need to know and not hit people over the head financially, because I think it's important to have free resources of information, and I'm trying to navigate that right now. That's the side quest. My story, I guess, my backstory, which is extremely long. When I was a kid, I didn't know this, but I knew this looking back on my life, but I was very observant. I listened. I was a very quiet kid. All I did was listen to everything, whether it was music, whether it was people's voices, conversations. I was a very quiet, observant kid, and people thought I was shy. I wasn't really shy. I just didn't want to talk. I didn't have anything to talk about. I just wanted to hear other people talk. So I listened a lot. My granddad used to work at, I don't understand the difference between psychoacoustics, ambisonics, surround sound binaural. Interesting. We might can talk about that. Um, I didn't understand. Wait, what was I at? Oh yeah, my granddad used to My granddad worked at this recreational center, and I used to go there, and he would take me home after he got off work or whatever, and I ride back, with him to my grandma's house and all that, whatever. So he would always listen to jazz music, and this introduced me to jazz. So I really liked the music. I thought it just sounded so cool and amazing and interesting. I liked the melodies and just the feeling and everything. I was listening to jazz with him, and then my grandma would be listening to soul music. My mom would be listening to like Prince, Belle Biv DeVoe, Salt and Pepper, and my goddad would be listening to like you like that, why won't I take that little bit, like that kind of funk stuff, but the funk mixed with a little bit of hip hop in there. So I started kind of categorizing people in my family by what music they would listen to, and I just enjoyed all of the music. I liked all of it. I thought it was lit. And then being in the car with my mom and hearing songs on the radio, I just really, really loved music. Okay, I didn't know this. Then you could be chord demon in the new underground. Dang, I don't know what you mean by that. Chord demon in the new underground. You lost me on that one. Um, yeah, so this was like elementary school, middle school, really listening to music. Middle school, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I was living in Mobile, Alabama at first when I was a kid. Moved to some other places, but eventually got to Atlanta, Georgia. By the time middle school came around, I was hearing these songs on the radio, and I was just thinking, man, like I could do that. I can make these songs, like I can make beats. I really started to gravitate towards the production and the melodies and drum patterns. And boy, yo, levity was happening. And I thought that I could do it, but I ain't have no money and like whatever. So I didn't know what to do about it. I just thought that I could do it. My mom ended up getting me this boom box. Wasn't really a boom. It's like a radio for real. So I could listen to the radio to go to sleep, and I would listen to jazz music to go to sleep. I would listen to just like R&B radio to go to sleep, old soul. I would have these different radio stations. You could preset them, kind of like in your car, right? Same thing. You could preset them to whatever. So I would listen to this stuff to go to sleep. And so I was listening to music all the time, like every day. You feel me? The underground lacks interesting harmony, and if you find a way to influence the artist, you might pioneer a new style. Oh, I love the wisdom that comes from your biz dog. Hey man, thank you. That's what I'm here. That's what we talking about right now. That's what I'm here to do. I'm glad that that brings me joy. Seriously, that brings me joy. Um, you know what's crazy? I'm working with an underground artist right now. So maybe we'll be able to do that. You feel me? Because I do agree. I've been listening to like I don't know how fully underground these people are anymore, but he put me on like a lot of these people, like Ken Carson and Diamond, and who else he put me on? Slayer, I think it was, and who else? It's like a few others that he told me about. But I agree, man. That's a whole nother thing, bro. Like that kind of is a call, like a circle back or whatever to the AI conversation, because with AI, someone who knows music, like Quincy Jones with AI is different from a high schooler who don't know what C major is. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's the same with FL Studio or with making a song. Quincy Jones making a song versus like a lot of the music that the underground is making is like, but the thing is they don't know. You feel me? They don't know what they don't know. So you can't, it's hard to be like, bro, you're doing that, which stems from this, and you could do this, which will make it 1,000 times better. But they're like, no, you don't get it. You don't understand because they're young and they have that energy, which can also make them great. But I say all that to say, I feel what you're saying, and it's just one of those things where they're gonna have to develop over time, and I think it will happen naturally for them as it does for us all. We all start off in a place that is not. When I first started mixing, I sucked. When I first started making beats, I was actually all right, but I did suck a little bit. And when I first started rapping and making songs, I was absolutely trash. So it's a part of the journey, you know. But I could hop in there and shake some stuff up, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll do it. Demetrius, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Sorry if I'm talking about random talks and that. No, it's cool. This is why I'm here to talk to y'all live. I'm excited to talk to y'all live. Like, that's why I've been here for I don't know how long it's been. How long we been on stream? 2 hours and 24 minutes. I'm excited to talk to y'all live. I want to do this more. This is all I want to do, actually. This is literally, I don't even want to make YouTube videos. I just want to hop on live and talk to y'all. If I could do that and this could grow, that's all I would do. Honestly, this is way easier than making a YouTube video, bro. I'm telling you. It takes, you know how long it took me to edit the video I just posted? Like, golly, it's crazy. 7 a.m. is insane. Dang, bro. Sheesh. Dang, cuz. Golly. Respect. Respect, my friend. Respect. Um, don't let me make you late for school. Um, wow. Where was I? What are some things in music you're still trying to learn? Oh my goodness, there are so many things in music I'm still trying to learn. I never finished this story, but it's really not important. It sucks. Speeding up the story. In high school, I got a program to make beats where I could program loops and I blah 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 program stuff together and I learned how to count bars. I learned how to like listen by ear and make things match as far as key. I didn't even know what something being in key was at the time, but I learned that skill by ear, basically by mistake, but just trial and error. Then I got FL Studio. I had got a job at a warehouse and I bought FL Studio and I started cooking up, started making beats. That's when it was a wrap. That's when I was obsessed. I got addicted and I started listening to everything. That's what happened is my entire life, I actually for most of my life I was like around black people for the most part, but in high school I moved to Alabama and I went to all white high school and they started exposing me to so much music. Like I never listened to rock music unless it was on the radio. I never listened to country music ever. Like growing up, just being real, being black, like people laughing at you if you listen to country music. Like it was so bad or something for some reason to listen to country music. But they started putting me on country music. And I'm like, yo, this kind of slap. Like, yo, this kind of go crazy, you know? So they started putting me on like Bruce Springsteen, AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Phoenix. And I'm like, yo, this is insane. So I went on a whole, and at this time, YouTube started going crazy. So everything is on YouTube. So they Coldplay, they started putting me on all these artists. I go home and I get on YouTube because again, I don't got no money. So I'm on YouTube listening to all of this music. I'm listening to The Doors. I'm listening to uh freaking Steely Dan. I'm listening to everything I've never heard before in my life. I'm going crazy, bro. I'm listening to everything. All American Rejects, bro. I'm going from now to as far back as I can go. I'm listening to Frank Sinatra. I'm listening to everything. Going insane. Now, obviously, I'm listening to, you know, Luther Vandross as well. I'm listening to all of the black stuff too. But I was literally never exposed to this other world of music. And what I found to be interesting is just there were just interesting differences, you know, and not that they were good or bad differences, they were just interesting differences. But I think me going on those deep dives of just listening to so much music and then producing and I'm sampling some of the music and I'm trying to recreate some of the music to just learn and get better that whole time in high school and then when I went to college still doing the same thing. I was literally just obsessed and addicted to music, listening to everything. And then I started listening to all the new stuff, like the whole mixtape era with hip hop started going crazy. I just was listening to so much music. I just did it because I really loved it and I was obsessed and addicted with the music. And I started making my own songs with my friends, like all everybody does. I really just wanted to make beats though. I wanted to be a producer. I wanted to be a song maker for real. I didn't necessarily just want to produce or make beats. I just wanted to be the person who made amazing songs. Like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in all the genres as well because I loved all of it. And what ended up happening is I was in the military. I was an officer in the Navy. That was going well. I ended up being in Pensacola. I was stationed down there. I built a studio. I started producing for artists and recording people. I at this whole time I was making music with my friends. I never got any money. Nobody ever paid me for nothing. I did this one session and this dude was like, "Yo, I pay so and so $50 for studio time, but you better than him. Like I'm gonna just go to you." And he wasn't paying me nothing. And he told me that, and I was like, "Hold up, you pay somebody to do this? Like you giving folk money for this?" I was like, "Oh, I'm in the wrong profession. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I want to do, at least. Not even what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't know if I was supposed to be doing, but this is what I want to do. You pay people. Like you get paid." I was like, "Oh, it's a wrap. I'm getting out the military if I can immediately." And I was able to get out. I was lucky. I was blessed. I got out the military. I had my studio running and I just ran my studio. And that put me into engineering because at the time I didn't know what a recording engineer was, a mixing engineer was. I was just like, I want to make songs. And people pay for studio time to make songs. So you just pay me. I started out at 30 an hour. I was like, you just pay me 30 an hour and we gonna make songs. Like it was that simple to me. You just gonna make songs. So that's what I did in Florida. And then it eventually got to a point where I was like doing well and I wanted to be like, I wanted to know if I could really do it or not, like if I was really good. So I was like, I'm gonna go to either Atlanta, Houston, or LA because to me those were bigger scenes than where I was in Florida. To me, LA seemed like the biggest risk for reward. So I moved to LA and that's where I'm at now. When I got to LA, I realized that I was really good at engineering. I'm good at producing, but engineering is like the thing, that people really are like, "Yo, you're going crazy as an engineer." So I decided to stop producing, stop making songs with people, and just engineer. And once I focused on that, I actually was able to go like full time and build a career or whatever. I'm in Van Nuys, and which is like North Hollywood for real. And that's where I'm at now. You feel me? There was definitely ups and downs. There was definitely struggle. There was definitely hard times. Tough. There was difficulty. But we doing all right now. We still got a long way to go, but we doing all right now. That's this cliff notes of the story. We need to come back to this psychoacoustics question. I think I'm going to actually screenshot that question and we'll try to figure out how to answer that for you fully because I actually don't know how I would answer that right now. Sorry, I'm talking about I'm talking same here, but I think about last year. So, hey, thank you. What's some things in music? Oh, some things in music I'm still trying to learn. I'm trying to learn how to become the best mixing engineer of all time. I want to learn more about um, miking live instruments. I want to learn more about there's so much depth to recording. I want to learn more about recording just better. The color, the imprint that different gear has on sound when you record through it. I want to experiment with that. I want to really sit down and use a real console. There's this nap in my head that I'm trying to get out right now. My bad. It was crazy. Here we go. We got it. Um, I want to. Hmm. I want to continue to dive more into like there are certain qualities. I think we all kind of obsess over analog to a certain extent. At least I did, and I still do I have for some time. I want to dive still a little deeper into seeing how I can make digital sound even more like analog because it's easy to make digital sound like digital. It already sounds like digital. So I want to see how I can still dive deeper into making digital sound more like analog. And I think a part of that will come from just working in analog. I want to get, I want to dive more into recording you know, recording live bands, recording more live instruments. Like a couple weeks ago, I was recording live saxophone, and that was fun, and it turned out really dope. It was great. Um, what else? There's so much, bro. There's so much. I think that I'm still trying to even go deeper with compression, with EQ, with the simple tools, you know? There's so much that can be done with the compressor and an EQ just from an emotional, from a character standpoint that is not being uncovered or talked about, you know? I want to I just want to keep diving deeper on those things, you know? I think there's so much depth to every skill set. I just want to continue increasing the depth on my skill set, my ability, my performance at this craft in every way I can think of. Because every way I can think of, I know there's 100 other ways that I haven't even thought of yet. You know, I want to dive deep more into the like the philosophy of saturation or just like the technical aspect of saturation, what makes even harmonics react a certain way versus odd. Like, it's so much. I want to dive deep into just vocal sounds, live drum sounds. That's something recently I've been slightly obsessing over is live drum sounds a lot. Um, yeah, stuff like that is where I'm at right now. Counterpoint equals a younger producer is hungrier, ear to the street, willing to take the chance because the upside of one good idea outlasts the 3,000 bad ones to get there. Uh, good point. Good point. My bad. Hi, yeah, better shout out to the Doors. Shout out to the Doors. You got any songs entirely of your own released? I do. I will not be sharing those. What's it? Oh yeah, yeah. Da, da, da. You're in LA as well. Yeah, bro, it makes you want. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this earlier on the stream. I really want the hardware for recording though. I really don't even care to like mix with analog for real. At least not right now. Maybe that'll change once I dive more into it. Like I've been in studios where I've, you know, used real 1176s, tube techs, 1073s, SSL consoles. Like I've done all of that and I've used it and stuff, but I really want to like sit down. It's different the way that I have been in those recording situations. I'll just be recording, you know? So it's like I can't really sit there and turn the knob every single way on an SSL console and see what it does to a sound. Like people are paying for this time. You know, this needs to go, you know. So I don't really have time to experiment and explore, you know. But from using it, I like what it does, but it's not to the point to where I'm like, oh, I need to mix analog. I feel like it does a lot for recording though. You know, I want to have a lot of gear for recording when it analog gear for recording. What was it? If you want to make digital sounds analog, then oh boy, I got some sauce for you. Virtual Mixer Rack. Hey, I definitely use Virtual Mixer Rack by Slade Digital for sure. I use the VCC, the virtual channel, a lot, and the mix bus one that they have. I use that um a decent amount, but it's more like it's the subtle things that I'm looking for. Like I've not that I've mastered anything. I don't think I've mastered anything yet, but it's like this certain way that there's this activity about analog. There's a certain activity, a certain movement, a certain way. If you listen to an analog reverb on a vocal, there's a it separates differently in the two speakers than a digital reverb does. And there are ways that I've experimented with in digital to recreate that, but it's not quite exactly the same. It's close, but it's not the same. And that those little small like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% things I'm really wanting to dive deeper into, you know, that type of stuff. I've really, again, not that I've mastered anything, but I've, went to the saturation, the difference from left to right, the consistent like even some of the activity, the consistent movement of just running through electrical equipment. There are plugins now that kind of emulate that to a certain extent, and there's ways you can, recreate that on your own. And there's a lot of stuff. I actually made a video about this. I made a video about this on the YouTube where I talk about making, digital sound analog. So I've dove into it, but there are certain things that are just like, I don't know, it's not quite being captured in digital yet, and I'm wanting to dive deep into making that happen. Um, Yo, you're a producer? Not really, not anymore. Yes, the API lunchbox for going in, it would be dream. Yeah, that would be fire, bro. That's a fact. I appreciate you, bro. I've got to head off. Love that. Hey, man, shout out to you, Ethan. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming through, man. You are the GOAT. I appreciate you again. I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna be back probably next week at some time. The Luna Doll and Neve slash API summing and Luna helps with that analog sound a lot. I didn't believe it till you know what? I gotta try it still. One of my engineer friends has said a similar thing, and I'm like, really? But I also heard somebody else. I forgot. Tilly. Tilly said the same thing. It's by Tilly. He works with QC and stuff like that. He said the same thing. So I gotta really try it. I've tried Luna, but I tried the free version. I don't remember if the free version came with the summing, but he was basically like, print stems and just put all your stems in there and run it through the summing, and then bring that back into Pro Tools and A/B them and see the difference. But then I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a difference, but there's like saturation per mine. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna experiment with it and see. Um, it's probably y'all probably on to something. Y'all probably on to something. The difference in voltage versus binary. I like I like your speak. I am an upcoming music artist with 5 followers on SoundCloud, and I have a music academy for people to join on Hyperbeam. I don't know what response you're expecting from me about this. That's one of the first paybacks to interning at a larger studio, booking off time and using the gear to exactly, that's facts. I never really did that when I first got out, because also one, I was in the military. Two, when I got out of the military to start making music, I just had my own studio, and I was in Pensacola, Florida. There's not a studio in Pensacola, Florida, like for real. There was a couple, but they didn't have analog gear like that. They definitely didn't have a console, so I learned like that. But when I got to LA, I did intern at a couple studios out here for a little bit, just to like make sure I wasn't missing stuff because I didn't know. But also those studios didn't have there wasn't a console in there. They had analog gear, they had like and they had C800s and Telefunken 251s. Like they had great vocal mic selections, and it was basically for vocal recording. They had 1176 and CL1Bs, 1073s. They had all of that stuff for vocal recording, but they weren't recording bands. They weren't really recording live instruments. It was just vocal recording for the main part. But that was still a great experience, and I learned some stuff. But I realized if I was gonna intern somewhere, I was like, I want to intern somewhere where I can like learn more, where I can learn how to record. Like I already know this, I was like, I already do this. I'm not learning anything, and they weren't even trying. I don't know. It just wasn't what I was trying to do for real. But it was definitely it was a good experience. But what I do want to do out here, because now I have some friends out here who work at big studios, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to book a session. I just dropped something. I'm going to book a session and I'm going to record. I'm gonna get, some live musician homies, and I'm like, yo, let's go to the studio and just like have a jam session. You feel me? So I can just learn this. You feel me? We can all just jam out and figure this out together. So that's what my plan is. Maybe I'll record that or something. I don't know. Luna is great for mixing and analog feel, not really for creating. I've heard that too. Printing stems is legit all I do. It's so easy and so good. Dang, that's what you. Okay, see, I'm gonna experiment with it. Can you break down a song on stream right now? If yes, Then the song is Caro Caro Bonita Time Today. What's good? Can you create a mixing contest? Oh, snap, a mixing contest? Really? That's something that y'all would want? They said that in my Discord a while back. What would that be like? And what do you mean can I break down a song on stream? And who is Caro Caro Bonita Time Today? Is that someone you know, or is that you? Is that a popular song? I don't know anything about this. I also can't guarantee that I would do this. The odds are low, just being transparent. Oh, this is not you. I am unfamiliar with who this is. And I'm interested as to why you want me to break this song down. And what does break the song down mean to you? It's a popular song with crazy mixing going on, and as a beginner, um, so one thing I'll say, if I was on Twitch, I might be more inclined to say yes. The only thing is I don't know how YouTube handles me being alive and listening to copyrighted music. Because even I did the reaction to the Chris Brown video, and that video is 100% demonetized. Like, they totally demonetized the video. And it's not that big of a deal. You feel me? It's not like I make that much money off YouTube anyway, but it's like I don't know how that affects the channel long term. Now, obviously, I know if I get a strike, that's affecting the channel long term. I've heard that it's not common to get those, and that the person who owns the copyright, or the people who own the copyright, have to actively make that happen. Like, they go in and say, hey, we don't want this on that channel or whatever, and then I get a copyright strike. But I don't know how this stuff works, you know, when I'm listening to copyrighted stuff. But if I was on Twitch, because I was on Twitch before I was streaming on YouTube, and you could listen to whatever on Twitch. At least at the time, you used to be. I don't know if it's changed, but you could listen to whatever on Twitch, and when they play it back on your VOD, that section would just be muted. But I don't know how this is gonna work, so I'm a little nervous about doing that. Basically, your take. Oh, it's a popular song with crazy mixing going on, and as a beginner, I would love to hear some techniques or plugin suggestions. Basically, your take on how I can recreate the aesthetic. You can mute the song for stream audience, but I do want to hear your mind. I love your perspective any day. How can I join your Discord server, bro? I'll send you the Discord link right now. But oh, and you also said you're in LA, bro. What part, man? You might hit me up on Instagram, my guy. We might have to connect with you. What you do out here? Oh, excuse me. Maybe I'll try that. But I will say it's unlikely that I'll be able to tell you how to recreate it. Oh, this is my Discord right here. It's unlikely that I might be able to tell you how to recreate it, because there are so many variables. There are an infinite amount of variables, but might be able to lead you in a direction, but I don't know if I'll be able to tell you how to recreate it, or how, like, what. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, honestly. So have low expectations for whatever I'm about to say. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Right. Let me pop out the chat. So what I'm about to do is listen to this song. I'm gonna go on full screen so y'all just look at me, and I'm gonna listen to this. I'm gonna make sure y'all can't hear it. First thing, small kick, loud snare. Well, snare's not that loud, but this is a weird mix. It's like all mono low key. It's all mono, and then there's this there's a little thing on the left, like a little bit, maybe like 25 to the left. Bro, this mix is ass cheeks to me. What do you like about this mix? What is it that you like about this? Whatever you're gonna say would be new info for my brain to research. But the feeling and the aesthetic is cool. But I wouldn't say, oh my, I wouldn't say I'm impressed by this mix. But let's continue. I'm just getting started. I'm only 20 seconds in. Okay. So that's a nice like it's kind of like a slap delay on the snare. It sounds like the right side is louder than the left side on the snap with a little reverb on it. It's kind of lo-fi-ish with the drums. It's kind of cool. Got a nice bounce though, nice groove. So that's a volume thing. Listen to how well y'all can't hear it. This is weird to do. The level of the hi-hat, that hi-hat, the dynamic of that hi-hat too is holding on to a lot of that groove, a lot of the feeling of it. It's not a static like up here. It's like it's like that's giving it a bounce, a groove of like that. You know, I don't know how. That's how all the way. Only way I could explain it is physically. And then that other hi-hat is like it's like a super like lo-fi other hat that's behind it, kind of like I don't even know what it is. It might not even be a hi-hat. It might be something else. The music is actually kind of muddy. The vocals are pretty thin. The effects on the vocals are mono. It's a slap delay on it. Slap delay is pretty loud actually, in comparison to the lead vocal at least. Oh, when the hook comes, we get a little stereo information with the synth. That makes the it gives you the brain the signal that we're going into the chorus or we're going into a moment where the song is about to grow. I like that. We get a little lift in the chorus. Like if you go back, there's a slight lift. If you listen to that bass going into the chorus, it's a nice lift. Just overall volume. Okay, when we get to the chorus, we get more stereo information. So that makes the chorus feel like it is growing, but they really only add a bass and like a keyboard synth sound or whatever. And then there's this, a lot of this is just production, honestly. Like the mixes, eh. That's nice when they have those. Sometimes people will tend to tuck those things, but those are like, I call them like accent pieces. You ever walk into um like someone's living room and they have an accent pillow. The accent pillow is normally a different color than everything else. Like if it's on the couch might be white, but the accent pillow is orange. That's supposed to pop. It's a small little pop of color, you know. So when they have these accent pieces, a lot of times people try to hide it for to keep everything balanced or symmetric. I don't know what people be thinking, but like let that pop. You know, they're doing nice things with that to let them pop. And that's literally just volume. Nice little symbols all the way to the left. Interesting. Oh, I love that. Yes, it definitely does. The song puts me into retro Japanese. It definitely feels like that. It definitely feels like video game memories. Absolutely. The song might not sound professional, but it puts me in a world of nostalgia and longing. It's like I'm transporting, and that's the most important part. It does feel like that alternative world as well. So that's good. A good point, because to be transported into an alternative world, maybe you need an alternative mix. And this is an alternative mix. It's very untraditional. Like the vocal sound, untraditional. The level of the slap delay, untraditional. The the everything being so mono initially for like not even just for the intro, but for the first verse and then the hook, we get some width, and then we have this symbol on to the left like that. Like this is very alternative. It's an alternative approach, and that goes perfectly with the aesthetic of the song. You feel me? That's why all of this is, it's like it all depends, because this mix is obviously the best mix for the song. It's the perfect mix for the song. It's the right mix for the song. Maybe not perfect or whatever, but it's the right mix for this song. That's the most important part. Whereas, like we'll see on YouTube, like, oh, you have to do this, you have to have body, the vocals can't be this, they can't be too thin, and like, but these are thin vocals. It's weird, but it's perfect. It's the right mix for the song. That's the most important part, is doing the right mix for the song, and they did that. So it's cool. The only thing that bothers me a little bit is this kick has no love in, no low end, bro. Like, where's the love? There's no heart to the soul to the kick, but that's obviously intentional. I think a lot of this is just EQ for like the mixing aspect, EQ and volume balancing. Like I feel like they didn't really do that much. And there's effects. They're doing some, not that they're doing interesting things with the effects, but the approach to the effects, like this slap delay that's on the vocal and the level that they have it at, this like trashy sounding reverb that just works for this song that they have on lead vocal. Even the level of the main synth that's playing throughout the whole song, it's louder than the lead vocal. Some people might be scared to do that. They don't even really sound like they EQ'd it that much. If they did, they made it dark and muddy. It just kind of works for the song. But then there are these brighter elements that are the pops of color on the outside, like around the mix like that. I'm just, this is how I envision all of this stuff in my brain. But like there's these pops of color over here with these synth sounds that tend to come in as the song progresses. But the main synth is like right here, super loud, but it's dark and it's kind of behind the vocal. But then the vocal is like super small and thin, and this little section right here. And then you got the kick that's not doing much, but it's doing what it needs to do. Hey, that was fire. That was fire, bro. I like that song. I never heard that song before in my life. You just put me on. Now I'm finna be listening to Quero Quero Bonito. Why is that a Quero Quero Bonito? That feels Spanish, but it seems like it's not. I think this is more production based. Uh, with mixing and production, there is a blurred line though. So a lot of this is just setting volume, panning. It'd be basic stuff, man. It'd be basics. Volume, panning, EQ. Like, they didn't do anything that crazy actually. It's just the vocals are thin, but they're not thin in a way to where they're brittle and bright and harsh. And then there's a slap delay on the lead vocals that's pretty loud compared to what where a slap delay on a vocal would be at today. There's this kind of like trashy reverb sound in the vocals. Sometimes they have these little harmonies, but even the harmonies are mono centered with the lead vocal, it sounds like. There's this main synth that plays out through the majority of the song that's pretty loud and muddy actually. Um, then they have these pops of color with these brighter synths that come up on the top left and the top right, or sometimes even pan around a little bit. And that's a nice contrast with the other synths that play throughout the majority of the song, because the synths that play throughout the majority are pretty like dark and muddy, but the pops of color are bright and they bring your attention towards them. The sound selection, like you were saying, it sounds video gamey, but that's more of a production thing. Even the drums sound video gamey. Like if you're playing on your Game Boy, you're not hearing low end on the drums. If you're playing Street Fighter or something and you're playing it on TV, so when you say that, it's like it seems like everybody knew that, it was intentional, which is why it makes sense that the kick drum isn't booming like that, because it's giving off that alternate like video gamey kind of vibe where you wouldn't get the low end, from a kick or from your drums on that playback system. I think it was really cool when the first hook came around. They introduced a stereo element, so that made me realize the mono was intentional. Like all of these things, it sounds like for the most part is intentional. So when the hook came in and that stereo keyboard synthy sound came in, because that was like stereo, that was intentional for that moment to grow. And then there was a lift in the chorus with that bass coming in. Um, yeah, I think it's a lot of it was arrangement and just balancing, volume balancing, being intentional about the placement of sounds, EQ wise and volume wise. Um, it's really not, and a lot of stuff was just dark and lo-fi and muddy sound, especially the drums. Like the drums carry a lot of energy sometimes when it comes to the fidelity of a record, like the lo-fi-ness versus the high fidelity of a record. You can interpret a lot from the drums and from the vocal of that aesthetic, because those are things that kind of just tend to repetitively rhythmically repeat throughout the entire song. So you kind of get a lot of information from those subconsciously. And they definitely had lo-fi aesthetic, the drums and the vocals, lo-fi aesthetic for sure. Yeah, that's what I could give to you, man. I don't really know. I can't say plug-in chains. It don't really matter. Like it's just basic stuff, bro. Like you could use basic stuff. Slap delay on the vocal, EQ out the top end and the low end, EQ on the lead vocal, EQ out a lot of the low end and low mids, and maybe do a little low pass filter on it so it's not bright, but you kind of got to play with the balance so that it's still thin, but you hear the mid range, the like just soft lo-fi mid range of the vocal. A lot of it is how she's singing as well, because it kind of sounds like she naturally might have a somewhat airy-ish voice, but they relax a lot of that airiness so it stays lo-fi. Um, the drums, high passed. The kick drum, definitely high passed. Not high passed to the point where it sounds extremely thin, but to the point where it sounds more like how a kick would sound off a Game Boy or something, or a PSP, that kind of low pass. Yeah, man. Did I say low pass? Yeah, a little high pass, whatever. Yeah. Hey, man, you're welcome. All right, guys, it's been real. It's been a long ass stream. I think I'm just going. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll leave this up as a live stream and see what happens. Normally, I like to um take it unlisted and re-upload it as a video, but I'm gonna just leave this up as a live stream and let it rock and see what happens. So I appreciate y'all, man. Shout out to Zounds for being a part of the channel. If you need to buy any gear, any control surface, any outboard gear, we was talking about that on stream, microphones, preamps, whatever. please use the affiliate link in the description. It goes a long way for supporting the channel. Obviously, you liking, subscribing, and hyping up the videos goes an extremely long way for the channel, but that as well, supporting the affiliate links, if only you need to get something. Not if you don't need it. If you don't need it, don't buy it. But if you need something, rock with me. I also have Waves and Safari Pedals affiliate links. I use a lot of those plugins as well. Yeah, that's all I got for y'all guys, man. If you're liking the vibe, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Keep growing. We all gonna keep growing together. I'm glad to share, man. I'll be back on another live real soon, man. Love all of y'all. Appreciate all of y'all. Till next time.